Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Apostate Ala-Ad-Din. I make videos and I host live streams discussing Islam critically, among other related topics. If I sound sick, it's because I am, so excuse me if I have to pause the stream every now and then to do something off camera. I make videos, like I said, discussing Islam critically, including today's live stream. This format I like to call Dissecting Apologetics, because we watch together a video that is apologetic about Islam or explains a concept in Islam, and we look at how the preachers say, what they mean, and what they mean to say but don't actually say. And then we visit scripture if it's relevant and compare our findings with what they told us. Let's see, what else did I want to say? If you are not aware, you're watching one of the best ex-Muslim YouTube channels, so please subscribe if you haven't already. On this channel, you will find no pandering to any particular group. There are no hidden agendas. There's also skepticism about my own opinions sometimes. There's self-criticism. So I'm not perfect, but I try my best to be, a bit more grounded than some other opinions I've heard out there. So without further ado, let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. Today's video is by a sheikh called Abd Al-Aziz Al-Khazraj Al-Ansari. I believe he is a Kuwaiti sheikh. And he made this video. I don't remember when he made it, but I saw this translated version a few days ago, and I decided I should probably make a video about this. In this video, he instructs, using the help of a child, possibly his child, how a Muslim is to beat their wife. I'll give some context about, why this is even a topic, what Islam considers to be domestic abuse, and what Islam allows a man to do to his wife and his kids, and so on. And if we have time, and I suppose if we reach today's super chat goal, I will also continue after reading the scripture, the relevant verses and hadiths. I will continue and I dissect Nouman Ali Khan's video about a similar topic, about how wife beating is bad. And we'll see what he says about that. Yeah, I sound ill, as I mentioned, because I am ill, but I'm wearing a mask, so you guys don't have to worry about it. It's not contagious right now. Okay, and I'll be reading some chats and super chats in between my commentary, so bear with me. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Yeah, or should I do the video verse first or the verse first? I'll do the video. There's an English translation on screen, but I'll also pause and I'll read it myself. Let's begin.
ما هو الضرب في الإسلام؟ الضرب في الإسلام ضرب خلق شو شلون؟ يعني الرجل لابد إنه يحسس زوجته بإيش؟ بقوتها.
So this man is saying, what is beating in Islam? Beating in Islam, and then he tells the kid, stand still. The man must remind his wife of what? Of his power.
أنت ليش ما تسمعين الكلام؟ كم مرة أنا أقول لك؟ كم مرة أنا أنبهك إنك أنت.
And he's pretending that he's shouting at his wife. He's saying, why don't you listen to me? Why aren't you obeying me? How many times did I tell you this? How many times have I told you to listen? And it's very telling what the example that he uses for demonstration here is, because people really don't believe me when I say Islam gave men a lot of power over their wives and women in their lives. Here he's saying, did I tell you to not leave the house without permission? And he says, you see how? This is a bit of intimidation. So for those of you who are not aware, in Islam, a man is allowed to tell his wife not to leave the house without his permission, even if she wants to go meet her family. If she wants to go visit her family, she has to get his permission first, and it's up to him to say yes or no.
هذا تعنيف شوي.
هذا تعنيف. This is a bit of intimidation, he says.
طبعا هي ترد عليه وانا زهري قايل لك تطلعين.
So he says she will respond, blah, blah, blah. And then he hits her on the side of her shoulder. And he says, I told you not to leave the house. How many times have I told you that? You see how to beat? Beat them lightly, dear brothers. And then he's just holding the kid. And the kid's laughing. That's what's messed up about all this. The kid is internalizing all of this as funny. Not fucked up, but funny. So this kid is likely, I don't know about this kid in particular, but kids in that position are likely to perpetuate this in the future and think this is what is expected of them. This is what is normal. This is what is good, especially when their role model is a man who is really, pious, really religious, really someone who follows the deen. And that is supposedly a good thing. So you want to follow in your father's footsteps? You want to follow in this sheikh's footsteps? You will find this a little bit amusing. It's infantilizing to women, absolutely. And I don't think people are aware. The verse 34 in Surah An-Nisa, which we're going to go over in a bit, explicitly says that a man has power to beat his wife. And the cope from all of these apologists is, dear brothers, don't beat them too harshly. You see how you're supposed to beat them? Just a little bit on the shoulder. Let's watch.
إخواني الأفاضل لا تطلعي مرة ثانية، فاهموا ولا لا؟ فاهموا ولا لا؟ شوفوا شلون إخواني الأفاضل، هذا هو الضرب في الإسلام. إخواني.
So, and again, his example is she's leaving the house without his permission, so he hits her on the side of her body.
الأفاضل ليش الرجل يضرب المرأة؟ لأن في بعض الحريم يحبون الرجل الحمل.
Okay, so dear brothers, why does a man beat his wife? Because some women love a manly man, like a macho man. Even in his own shitty opinion, he says some women. And I don't think this guy is aware of the consensual BDSM community, because there are some men who like the, powerful woman and all that. But if some women like that stuff, why should Allah subject all of them to a rule where men can be abusive towards them? Because some women like to be roughed around consensually. But no, he says some women love a manly man, and that is their idea of a manly man. A man who gets angry at his wife and can't control his emotions and beats her, supposedly gently. They love a man who makes himself a master. I wonder why. I wonder who they're talking about. Are they talking about Muslim men or Muslim women? Because from what I've seen, from my experience, the way that Muslims idolize Muhammad and the way that they idolize God, the Allah figure, which is essentially a manly man, a master, they start to idolize other figures that are masters and manly men too. That's why authoritarianism, or one reason why authoritarianism is very popular in these communities. They love a manly man. But yeah, he says that women love a man who makes himself a master.
هي طبعها كده تحب الرجل العنيف.
She, by her nature, did he say طبيعتها or طبيعها? Whatever. By her nature, she loves an assertive man who is powerful, you see. And you know what's funny? There's not a single woman in this video. There's a man and a future man, and they're both demonstrating how to beat a woman. Okay. That's a good question. If a man disciplines the woman, then who disciplines the man? It's really frustrating to me that this is funny to him and probably to this child. Like, look at this clown's face. Look at him. Like, he's really proud of himself. So this I swear, this religion is going to take 10 years off of my life because of how frustrating this shit is to watch every single day. But I got to do it for you guys. So the reason why I'm doing this is because there's not a single Muslim influencer, content creator, whatever you want to call it, da'wah person who's going to make a video and say, actually, we have a problem with wife beating, and it has something to do with Allah allowing men to beat their women. This is not funny. This is not good. No one's going to say that, because to say that is to be a kafir. So the best that they can do is apologetics. Like, well, you hit her gently. You don't leave a mark on her, and so on and so forth. So I guess someone's got to do it. So let's look at the scripture. Are we sure we're not watching some manosphere video? Yeah, and that's why Andrew Tate is so popular in Muslim circles, is because they love a manly man, a toxic manly man. Now let's look at the verse together, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. So this is Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 34. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Before I'm going to read it in English instead of Arabic, because most people who are watching don't understand Arabic. But just know that I can read it in Arabic. Just know that this is not an excuse. Like, I don't want someone to be like, oh, well, Aladdin, you don't know Arabic. And like in Arabic, it's fuck off. It's the same thing. I will explain every word and I'll go into details. In Arabic, it means beat them. Anyway, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I am at my wits' end with this topic. Um, Men are in charge of women. No, okay, let's skip Sahih International because it's usually an apologetic translation. I like this one better by Pickthall. Men are in charge of women. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Some translate it to they are protectors or maintainers of women, which in every translation is infantilizing. Men are in charge of women because Allah hath made the one of them to excel the other. Who is excelling over the other? Well, obviously the men to excel over the other. And because they spend of their property for the support of women. وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. This is something that is always brought up as some kind of right that Muslim women have, or some kind of blessing. You know, Muslim women are treated like queens. Look, the man is even supposed to provide for her. He's supposed to give her money, but then it's held as ransom against her. The way it's like, well, he is your protector. He is your maintainer. He has some degree of authority over you because he paid for it. So do you really want the money if at the end of the day it means he can beat you? I don't think so. I don't think that's actually a good thing. But let's continue. Yeah, because they spend of their property. So good women are the obedient. Obedient to who? Allah or their husbands? I don't think it makes a difference, because obedient to Allah is by extension obedient to her husband, because her husband gets to use the power that Allah instilled in him by virtue of having a penis. So a good woman guards in secret, which with what? That which Allah hath guarded, essentially her private parts. You see, we don't see a lot of talk about how a good man guards his cojones. A good man guards the tip of his blah blah blah. Nothing about that. It's always on the women. A good woman does this. A good woman does that. Let's continue the verse. As for those whom ye fear rebellion, admonish them. فَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزَهُنَّ. That part here. It doesn't even say those who disobey you, those who are bad people, those who are bad women. It says those who you fear their disobedience. If you just fear their ill conduct, if you have a hunch that she might be doing something behind your back, then advise them, and then forsake them, separate from them, in the bed, admonish them and banish them from the beds, and scrouge them. This part, scrouge them. وَضْرِبُهُنَّ, and finally strike them. There is no finally, by the way. It just says, and strike them. Strike them. This is the word that everyone's been trying to do mental gymnastics backflips to explain that beating them doesn't actually mean beating them, because you can say فَضْرِبْ مَثَلًا, so you beat an example, but it doesn't mean beat. It means gives an example. But no, in this context, it absolutely means beat. It doesn't mean separate from, because the verse already says separate from them in bed, and it uses a different word. Why would God say separate from them and then finally separate from them? It's insane. It's insane, the mental gymnastics that people go through to try to justify that this word doesn't mean beat. And let's say God didn't mean it, or the author didn't mean it to mean beat. Why would he use the same word that means beat to say something that doesn't mean beat? Whose fault is that? Yeah, and this verse, thank you, Fatima. This verse also kind of promotes acting on paranoia. If you fear their ill conduct, if you fear their disobedience. And it's funny to see the apologetics, like this commenter saying, that verse is talking about adultery, not hitting women. I don't see any mention of adultery whatsoever. And we'll get to that if we do look at Nauman Ali Khan's video in a little bit. The whole like adultery, apologetic. It is clearly talking about hating women. Let's look at it again. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are maintainers of women, dominant over women, because of what Allah has bestowed some of them over the others, and because of the money that they spent on them. So the good women are obedient and guarding the unseen, guarding their vaginas. And those who you fear their disobedience or their ill conduct, advise them, separate from them in bed, and beat them. And if they obey you, so don't seek against them a way in Allah kana aliyan kabira. The verses always end with this nonsense that is like supposed to make it rhyme or supposed to make it seem a little bit deeper than it actually is. So it says, so if they obey you, then that's okay. And God is, what is aliyan kabira? God is like the most high, the most great, the most exalted, and so on. I don't see any greatness or exaltation that is deserved because of this verse. So that's the Quran. For those of you who don't know, the Quran is supposedly the final word of God that is preserved, that is perfect, that nothing in it is bad. Not a single word of it could be improved in any way. I don't know about you, but I could see a lot of improvement here. If the author didn't mean beat, the author could have used a different word, the author could have clarified, and so on and so forth. If the author did mean beat, then I'm sorry, but the author is an idiot who doesn't understand human psychology, and he's kind of enabling domestic violence. So clearly there's something wrong with this verse. There are a lot of hadiths, and hadiths some Muslims regard to be not as authentic as the Quran because hadiths contain a lot of problematic things. The Quran also contains a lot of problematic things, but the hadith, without it, the hadiths are the sayings about the Prophet that people have collected after the Prophet died. It's not the Quran, it's not the revealed word of God, allegedly. It is things that the people have heard Muhammad say. And they say that these things cannot be trusted. But these things are how we built Islam. There's nothing, like most of the Quran is not understandable without the hadith. Most of how we pray, how we do anything, there is not enough information in the Quran. If you just hold up a Quran and try to understand it, all the ulama in the world, all the sheikhs in the world cannot understand it without having to refer to these secondary sources like the hadiths. And there are these different ways of grading the hadith to see if it's authentic, to see if it's trustworthy, and so on and so forth. And all the hadiths that I'm going to show you today, I believe all of them are authentic, or at least the majority of them are regarded as the same degree of authenticity that Muslims wouldn't question normally. It's only when things are problematic that Muslims start to say, well, we can't trust the hadiths. But I want to show that there's plenty in the Quran, in the hadith that show that Muhammad lived among people who beat their wives, and he made it more normal for them. And he never really said, hey, stop beating your wives. He actually contributed to it happening. Okay. Something I want to point out here. Thomas says you should consider Christianity, whether Catholicism or Eastern Oriental Orthodoxy. You should read so and so. The problem with this is, once I've figured out that this method of transmission of God sending one special guy or like an extension of himself to teach us his ways and so on, and then disappearing and never coming back again, once you tell that this is bullshit, no other religion can really convince me. I mean, I'm sure Christianity doesn't have the same degree of, wife beating issues that Islam has, but that doesn't mean that Christianity is therefore true. It's still the same core issue, which is a hidden God that we're supposed to believe in on faith. Otherwise, we will go to hell. And I just can't believe in that. Anyway, let's continue. Let's read some hadiths. Let's start with this one. Tell me if you can see on screen. The Book of Good Manners and Form, Kitab al-Adab, chapter, let not a group scoff at another group. This is a very weird hadith, but we'll see. The Prophet forbade laughing at a person who passed wind. For some reason, you can't laugh at someone who farted. And he said, how does any of you beat his wife as he beats the stallion camel, and then he may embrace, sleep with her at the end of the day? And Hisham said, as he beats his slave. So there are two versions of this hadith. Hisham reported that the Prophet said, how can any of you beat his wife as he beats his slave, and then embrace with her at the end of the day? I've seen this hadith in the context of trying to make it seem like Muhammad was against beating your wife. And you tell me, does this seem like he's against beating your wife? Or is he saying some of you beat your wives as hard as you beat your animals / your slaves, and then you sleep with them at the end of the day? That's weird. But he's not saying don't beat your wife. He's saying don't beat them as hard as you beat a slave or an animal. He doesn't even say don't beat slaves, don't beat animals, don't beat wives. What are you talking about? How is this hadith supposed to make Muhammad look any less of a domestic violence enabler? Nothing. I don't know about you guys. I'll put all these hadiths in the description at the end of the live stream, just so you can find them yourself and read them yourself. Here's another one. The chapters on marriage. The wife's right over the husband. It's funny. I wonder what the right would be. A man asked the Prophet, "What are the rights of the woman over her husband?" He said that he should feed her as he feeds himself and clothe her as he clothes himself. He should not strike her on the face nor disfigure her, and he should not abandon her except in the house as a form of discipline. Again, the theme of infantilizing women to be like children that you get to discipline at home, you hold her at home without letting her go outside. The amount of times that I've heard stories, firsthand accounts of people who have been trapped in their home by their father or brother or something like that, a man, a patriarch in the house who was doing it with full Islamic authority. It's sad the amount of times that I've heard this story. A man has the right to discipline his wife like she's a little child. I mean, it would be child abuse if you keep your child in the house for something as simple as wanting to go and see their family or wanting to go out. Like that's how it is in Islam. If the wife wants to go out and the husband says no, he has the right to trap her at home. But it's interesting that in this hadith, the right that the woman has is that she's not beaten on the face or disfigured. The bar is so low, exactly. The bar is so low that people will quote this hadith and be like, see, women have rights. What do I even say to that? And there's something I want to mention about this whole like, don't beat them on the face and don't leave a mark bullshit. If you are able to beat a kid or a woman or someone without leaving a mark and not on the face, and keep in mind that Muslim women cover everything except their face, and in some instances, even their face. So a woman who you can't see the marks on her body from the beating, or the husband does it in a way that it doesn't leave a mark, how likely is she to be able to get help if nobody notices that her husband is beating her? So if someone does not leave marks and hits in a way that is easy to hide, that on places where a woman is supposed to be hiding her body anyway, how is that good for the woman? How is that the woman's right to not be beaten on the face? Fuck off. And I'm sorry, this stream is going to be full of profanity because I can't handle this topic with a calm mind. I just can't. Which reminds me of a word that escaped me to comment on in the video that we were watching. When the guy was saying women love this and that sheikh, he was saying al-harim. You might not know this, but in parts of the Middle East, harim is the word to refer to women. And or like hurma is like a singular, harim is plural. And hurma, it's I believe it's derived from like the word haram or like haram to look at. So like the hidden women, the women that are even their voice is awra. Harim are like the things that you hide. So it's a demeaning word even to refer to women, just as the word. And then he goes to say that sometimes they like a guy who can rough them up or a tough guy. Fatima says, domestic violence is heartbreaking, and a woman is expected to put up with this crap because it is in Islam. And we'll see a bunch of hadiths now about how there's nothing really a woman can do about this. It'll paint a better picture of why this keeps happening. All right, so we've seen this hadith. We'll move on to the next one. Again, all of this will be in the source. So all the sources will be in the description after this live stream is over. The wife's rights over her husband. Again, did we already read this one? Yeah, I guess we did. Might just be my mistake. Let's take another one. This one says the Book of Miscellany. I don't know what that means, to be honest. Recommendations with regard to women. The Messenger of Allah said, do not beat Allah's bondwomen. Do not beat, لا تضربوا إماء Allah. This word, ima, from the single ama, means female slave. Here they're talking about the slaves of Allah, and for some context, men and women and children, everybody is slaves of Allah. When you hear someone called Abdul whatever, that's Abdul Rahman, for example. Rahman is a word for Allah, is one of Allah's names. So they're saying, my name is slave of Rahman, slave of Allah. So everyone is a slave of Allah. And Muslims hold that with pride. I find it a bit sad, because Allah is not even a proven entity, it's an idea. So they're slaves to an idea and people who claim to speak on its behalf. But for some context here, Muhammad says, do not beat the female slaves of Allah, meaning the women. Like, I guess it's an endearing way to refer to women. Do not beat Allah's bondwomen. When Umar was one of his buddies who had a big role in shaping Islam, and actually some of his opinions made it into the Quran, and you'll see why. Umar came to the messenger and complained, saying, the women have become very daring towards their husbands. He, Muhammad, gave permission to beat them. That was, I don't know if that was through the verse or before the verse, but essentially, I don't know why apologists keep saying it doesn't mean beat. Muhammad said beat them. Then many women went to the family of the messenger of Allah's wives, to Muhammad's, one of his wives, because he had so many, complaining of their husbands. And the Prophet said, many women have gone round to my family complaining of their husbands. Those who do so, that is, those who take to beating their wives, are not the best of you. What do I even say to this? Because this is this kind of bullshit that people will pull up and say, look, even Muhammad said, don't beat your wife. Are you blind? Like the Hadith says, he allowed people to beat their wives. When women started complaining, he said, those who beat their wives, they're not the best of you. Come on, guys. That's not great. Don't do that. Stop it. But it's in the Quran. But hey, they're not the best of you. Which one is it, Muhammad? Can they beat their wives or can they not? They can be their wives, but they're not the best of you if they don't. Okay, but that's not a license. Sorry, that's still a license to beat them. That's not an admonishment. That's not saying don't beat your wives. The fact that you can see even in this hadith that is in Muslim sources that people were complaining that his actions have caused more harm to them. It's mind-boggling that anyone can still defend this. His words have caused women to get beaten. And then the best he can say, the spineless man, Muhammad, is, those are not the best among you. Grow a spine. Say either beat or don't beat. Say, don't beat your wives because that is fucked up. Say that. He can't, because he can't go against Allah's words, apparently. All right, the next hadith. You can quote me on any of this, by the way. And again, they're all going to be in the description. The next hadith. Wait, there's a question. I'm feeling a bit spicy today, so I'm going to take questions no matter how stupid they are or how annoying they are. Nuclear Geo says, just a question. What's the point of life if you're an atheist? What's the point of a soul or a biological organism? I do not know. I don't know if there was a point or like an intention behind us existing, but we already do exist. And I find it really silly that religion has programmed us to think, if you don't believe that my guy spoke to God and God said he can have so many women, then you have no purpose in life. You think life means nothing. Then you better explain to me what the purpose of life is. I at least have the intellectual honesty to say, we don't know. You're following a man who's arrogant enough to claim that he spoke to God and God gave him license to do this, this, and that. So I don't know why we're here, but I refuse to believe that the reason why God allegedly created this entire universe and waited billions of years from our perspective on our timeline, billions of years of evolution and, all sorts of animals living and dying and all sorts of organisms living and dying, just to test a few people, just to speak to one guy and tell him he can marry his adopted son's wife and he can marry this young woman and he can marry as many women as he wants. That is outrageous to me. Like, there's no way that could be true. And yeah, I guess somehow when we're programmed to think that there has to be eternity, there has to be afterlife, there has to be infinity, and there isn't infinity anymore, or you realize, what if there isn't? Then you feel like life means nothing, that life is so short and meaningless. But if you grew up with the idea that there isn't infinity and this is the life that you just get, maybe it's more valuable. Maybe you make the most of it that you can, instead of just thinking that I'm not going to get heaven, I'm not going to get hell. This hadith from Kitab al-Nikah, the book of marriage, the chapter called Regarding Hitting Women. Again, Muslim apologists, please, if you say the Quran doesn't say beat women, Why are all the hadiths talking about beating women? It's literally saying it. Darb nisa, beating, hitting women. Like you can't spell it any clearer than that. The Prophet said, a man will not be asked as to why he beat his wife. This one is da'if, but I remember seeing this in a different version that was sahih, and we might see it later in these hadiths. Either way, I've heard people quote this, that you can't really get in the way between a man and how he disciplines his family. And I've seen that attitude so many times. Even going to the police in many Muslim communities is not going to do you anything, to report this abuse, because the man of the house, the patriarch of the house, is the judge, the jury. The judge, I'm thinking of Doug Judy for some reason. The judge, the jury, and executioner. He gets to decide what happens in his house. So a man is not asked about why he beats his wives. We'll see that hadith again in a more sahih version. Here's another hadith. Wait, is it highlighted on the screen? Let's see. Yeah. The treatment of wives and the rights of each. Umar reported the Prophet as saying, a man should not be asked about why he beat his wife. Again, this one's weak. I'll get you another one. Don't you worry. On screen, here we go. Hunting and slaughtering, the chapter of branding the faces. Umar disliked the branding of animals on the face, but Ibn Umar said the Prophet forbade beating animals on the face. I think, by the way, thank you to the one of the members of the Discord community helped me come up with all these hadiths, find them for the live stream. So thank you for collating them all together. And I think they put that one in there because of the similarity between the emphasis on not beating your wife on the face and not beating animals on the face. So in a way, women are kind of supposed to be, I guess, treated like cattle in that way. Like it's not even that much of a privilege. If you're not supposed to beat animals, it's not that much of a privilege to not beat the woman in the same way. But we can skip that one for now. Again, hitting women. The chapter is called Hitting Women. You see how there's never a chapter called Hitting Men? Like there's no chapter on what to do if your husband's a piece of shit. There's none of that. There's just women, women, women. Even Surah An-Nisa, the chapter in the Quran called An-Nisa, the women, is not talking to women, like, dear women, this, and that. No, it's, dear men, your women, do this with them. If you have this situation with your women, do this and do that. Allah doesn't really speak to women. He speaks about women. Anyway, yeah, like Hassan says, a man who fears disobedience or nushuz from his wife can hit her. But if a woman fears nushuz from her husband, she can make peace with him. Oh, we're going to see that soon if we watch the Nauman Ali Khan video. Thank you, Hassan. Continuing on, the Messenger of Allah never beat any of his servants or wives, and his hand never hit anything. The glazing, and I hear this one often when Muslims say, okay, well, if Islam allows wife beating, how come Muhammad never beat any of his wives? First of all, I have a hadith that I'll show you in a little bit where Muhammad did beat Aisha. And secondly, I don't care if he personally did hit or not hit his wives. He allowed it to happen. And as I showed in hadiths earlier, he allowed it to happen so much that people were complaining in his time that there's an effect of his words. People are being beaten more often. Women are being beaten more often because of his words. So I don't give two rats' asses if he personally hit someone else or not. This seems more like glazing of the cult leader than anything, but I still have evidence to the opposite, that he did beat someone. We'll get to that in a second. Like I said, I have receipts for everything. Generosity and orphans, the chapter of disciplining an orphan. So beating an orphan. The disciplining of orphans was mentioned in the presence of Aisha. Aisha was Muhammad's favorite wife, who he married when, according to her own words, she was a 6-year-old, and consummated the marriage when she was 9. And she was his favorite. He always talked about how much he loved her, and all his wives were jealous of her. And yeah, she is a big deal in Islamic, like the continuation of what Muhammad said, and Muslims refer to her a lot. So the disciplining, the beating of orphans was mentioned in the presence of Aisha, and she said, I would beat an orphan until he submits. So I can't even hold this against Aisha, because being a child groomed and indoctrinated and married to the leader of the cult, who did allow beating children and women, it's not that hard to see that she continued the cycle of abuse. So yeah, Aisha said that she used to beat orphans till they submitted. And you wonder why Muslim families have a lot of domestic violence issues and a lot of problems at home. And if I never want to hear someone say again, you left Islam because your family's messed up, or you left Islam because not because Islam is wrong or bad, but because your family particular sucks. But here you have the al-Mu'mineen, the mother of believers, the favorite wife of the cult leader himself, saying that she used to beat kids. You can't blame people at this point. You have to blame the systemic ideology. You have to. You have to. Anyway, this other hadith, the book of virtues, the chapter of avoidance of sin, choosing the easier permissible things, his vengeance for the sake of Allah, and sacred limits were transgressed. That's a long book title for a chapter. Aisha reported that Muhammad never beat anyone with his hand, neither a woman nor a servant, but only in the case when he had been fighting in the cause of Allah, and he never took revenge for anything unless things made inviolable by Allah were made violable. He then took revenge for Allah, the exalted and the glorious. All the glazing out. Muhammad was such a good guy. He never beat anyone unless it was in jihad, unless you were raiding their town, which is peaceful because Allah said do it, because it's for the sake of Allah. When you realize the exceptions that believers will make for their favorite, leader, or their ideology, or the reasoning behind what they do, then bad isn't bad anymore. Enslaving isn't bad if it's done in the name of Allah. Beating isn't bad if it's done in the name of Allah. Taking over a town isn't bad if it's done in the name of Allah. So yeah, Allah never made beating a woman as inviolable in the first place. Next hadith. And bear with me, because after all this, we will, I guess we'll watch the video of Nu'man Ali Khan, even if we don't reach the super chat goal, but that would really help, because then I can order food tonight and not have to make my own food because I'm sick. But either way, I'm going to do the Nu'man Ali Khan video. All right. Purification book, the chapter on blowing water from the nose. How is this going to lead to beating? Let's just, skip to the end. So this part of the hadith, if there's something good in her, she will do so, she will obey. And do not beat your wife as you beat your slave girl. I told you this hadith was going to come back. So there's here an acknowledgement that you do beat your slave girl. He didn't say, some of you beat their slave girls, and that is bad. Some of you beat their wives, and that is bad. He said, don't beat your wife like you would beat your slave girl. So an acknowledgement that some people beat their slave girls, and that happens. Just don't do the wife that bad. What can I say? What can I say to that, really? I just wanted to show you the receipts. There's no commentary, I guess, for me to say here. What else? And it's funny how this stuff comes up in a hadith that is supposedly not even classified as something related to beating. The book of manumission of slaves, letting slaves go free. If somebody beats a slave, he should avoid his face. That's the name of the chapter. The Prophet said, if somebody fights or beats somebody, then he should avoid the face. So it's not even that women are especially given an exception for not beating their face, but just in general, don't beat the face. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but the context in which this comes up as, hey, beat your slave, but just not on the face, or beat your wife, just not on the face. It's no comment. Chapter of marriage, the book of marriage, the chapter of the treatment of wives and the rights of each. The rights. Fucking hate when they say rights about things that aren't, like, again, what was that other hadith? What are the women's rights? To not beat her on the face and not disfigure her. That's a right. Do you even know what rights mean? God's messenger is saying, do not beat God's handmaidens, God's servants, the women. But when Umar came and God's messenger said, the women have become emboldened towards their husbands. Oh, that's another version of the hadith we read earlier. He gave license to beat them Do you want this in English? Do you want this in Arabic? Do you want this in Urdu? What do you want this in, dear believers? Here. فحرض wait فرخص في ضربهن. He licensed beating them. Then many women went round God's messenger's family complaining of their husbands, and he said, many women have come and complained, those are not the best among you. Thank you, Muhammad. Very cool. What a feminist of a man. And when people say that Muhammad was the first feminist, do you understand what being a feminist means? Like if your bar is so low that a guy says don't beat her in the face makes him a feminist, you have not heard of feminism. You have no idea what feminism means. It's just a filthy word to you. Okay, here's another hadith that shows that Muhammad himself has beaten somebody. And I'll go with it with you through it because it is a crazy hadith. Okay, the book of the kind treatment of women, the fucking gaslighting begins already. The chapter of jealousy. Okay, notice the blaming, the shift blaming, the blame shifting. All right, shall I not tell you about the Prophet and Aisha said. Again, his young, impressionable favorite wife. We said yes. She said, when it was my night, when he, meaning the Prophet, was with me. By the way, he had a night for every wife because that's how popular he was. He had so many wives, he had to give each one night. But I made a whole video about this, and I'll link it at the end of this one. There was one time where his, uglier, unattractive, older wife was worried that he would divorce her because he loved Aisha so much that she gave up her night so he could spend it with Aisha, and he made that into a verse. So even Muhammad wasn't fair to his wives. But anyway, on one of the nights where he was at Aisha's place, he came in, placed his shoes by his feet, laid down his garment, and spread the edge of his lower garment on his bed. And soon as he thought that I had gone to sleep, he put his shoes on slowly and picked up his clothes. He opened the door slowly, went out, and shut it slowly. I put my garment over my head. Keep in mind this little detail right here. Aisha put her garment over her head, covered myself, and put on my izar, lower garment, and I set out after him until he came to Al-Baqi'. That is what's the word for this? A graveyard. And I actually know somebody who is buried in Al-Baqi' because Muslims believe that it's very special to have your loved one buried there for some reason. So he raised his hand 3 times and stood there for a long time. Then he left and I left. He hurried and I hurried. He ran and I ran. And I got there before him and entered the house. I had only just laid down when he came in and said, "Oh, Aisha, why are you out of breath?" I said, "No." He said, "Either you tell me or Allah, the all-aware, all-knowing, will tell me." So this is a theme in Muhammad's relationships with his wives, where he would say, he would wield the power of Allah, he would wield the power of God to, and notice this, by the way, just keep this comment in mind. I'll keep it on the screen for a while because you'll see the cope right now. There's the common theme where Muhammad would threaten his wives with Allah. He would either say, like in a verse, if you want to leave him, you can leave him, but no one's going to marry you and Allah's going to replace you with better women and stuff like that. And in this case, he says, if you don't tell me, Allah's going to tell me. So he's sort of emotionally blackmailing her. But let's continue the hadith. All right, big screen. So if you don't tell me, Allah the all-knowing will tell me. I said, "O Messenger of Allah." Even the fact that she's referring to her husband as his Messenger of Allah, like poor woman was deeply indoctrinated. "May my father and my mother be sacrificed for you." Who talks to their husband that way? Like, imagine your husband saying, "Tell me or else I will get the angels to tell me." And you respond by, "I'd give up my family for you. I'm sorry. That's sad." And I told him the story, Aisha said. And he said, "You are the black shape I saw in front of me?" I said, "Yes." She said, "He gave me a shove in the chest that hurt me." Do you read this? Do you see this? He gave me a shove in the chest that hurt me. I'll read it in Arabic. فَلَهَدَنِي فِي صَدْرِي لَهْدَةً أَوْجَعَتْنِي. It hurt me. أَوْجَعَتْني. And then we have people like this commenter right here saying, He lightly grazed her. It's not like he actually hurt her. What a cope. The image of a 50-plus-year-old man pushing a little girl's chest while threatening her is so, and I'll finish the sentence, disgusting, horrifying. And keep in mind, Aisha was the same person who narrated a hadith saying he never hurt anybody. He never put his hand on anybody. Again, today I'm in gives zero fucks mode, so let's answer this comment. Why the mask? Afraid to get the Chinese virus? If you're new here, I wear a mask for my anonymity and safety. And also, I happen to be sick right now, so it's for your own good. Yeah, no sympathy for the victim. And the way that I've seen this hadith minimized, I've seen people say, well, it was actually a spiritual force that she felt. You know, like the bullshit that you see in some churches where people like start, waving their hands around and like having fake seizures and stuff when the pastor touches them. It was that kind of thing. Like the force of the spiritual healing from his hand is what she felt. It was the light. It was all that she felt. She didn't say it hurt me. It just meant like, I don't know what they even say, but it's bullshit. As you can see, she literally said, he hit me on the chest and it hurt me. Let's continue. And he said, you thought that Allah and his messenger would be unfair to you. If this isn't unfair, then what the fuck is it, Muhammad? Like, he's like, I'm so just. I'm so just. She said, whatever people conceal, Allah knows it. The poor woman was so indoctrinated and afraid that she thought her own thoughts weren't even private. Her own thoughts weren't private because Allah supposedly would tell Muhammad. Again, I'm in zero fucks given mode, so I'm going to answer this stupid comment. Yeah, back then, men used to marry younger women. I wouldn't do it, but y'all are acting only like only Muslim men used to do it. All people did. I don't like it, but it was all people's cultures, not only again and again. Muhammad was not all people. If you're telling me the best guy in the whole world that everyone is supposed to follow till the day of judgment, and he is the light of our existence, he is our savior, he is our guide, and he's a child diddler. What was God with wrong's plan? Why couldn't God tell this one guy, hey, I know everybody else does this. Maybe you don't do this. Why not? I don't understand this. Like, I've only been tolerant for so long. I don't understand how you can stare a fact in the face and still not cope with the fact that you're wrong. I don't care if everyone else at the time didn't see the harm in grooming a child and then marrying them. He had a connection with God. He should have known better. Thank you for the super chats, by the way. I haven't been keeping up with all of them, but I'll read them in a second. Noor says, all these ayahs and hadiths emboldened my father to fear disobedience from my mother for 40 years, enough to bruise her and make her sick and fearful. I'm so sorry for your mother. And I will keep repeating this. This is not isolated stories from 1400 years ago. We see this every single day in the Muslim world and even outside the Muslim world in Muslim communities. Every single day. And all I hear from Muslims is excuses and how men are bad and it's just imperfect men. Muhammad himself has participated in this. He allowed this to happen. He emboldened people to do this. Let's continue. So yeah, she was so afraid she thought that Allah can read her minds and tell Muhammad. And he said, yes, that is true. He said, Jibreel came to me when you saw me leave, but he did not enter upon you because you have taken off your garments. So he called me, but he concealed himself from you, and I answered him. So, okay, so typical gaslighting. I swear, babe, I swear there's an angel that came to see me, but because you weren't dressed properly, because you were, in whatever you're wearing to sleep, he was shy to come in. Fuck right off. Fuck right off. Do angels have penises? Chat, do angels have penises? Do angels get aroused by seeing a woman not covered up properly? Is it disrespectful to an angel if, do angels not surround you when you're taking a shower? Are they not writing down your thoughts and your actions and everything just because you're naked? In that case, let's all get naked and do all the sins that we want because no one's watching except Allah, apparently. This is so stupid. And it only works because that was a child that he was manipulating. That was someone who believed in superstitious stuff in an environment where everyone believes in superstitious stuff. And he happened to convince her that The angel actually came to see me, but you weren't dressed properly. So he didn't show himself to you, or he just, walked out. He asked me to go outside. I can't deal with this sometimes. He concealed himself from you, and I answered him, but I concealed it from you. So both of them are somehow concealing their communications from her. It's not that him and his possibly schizophrenic mind has heard a voice and went to follow it. No, this all really happened, but we both concealed it from you. Is Muhammad able to conceal his communication with an angel from his wife? How? I thought he was just a human. I thought he didn't have superpowers. He said, I thought that you had gone to sleep and I did not want to wake you, and I was afraid you would feel lonely. Is that why you pushed her when you came back, Muhammad? Which is it? Did he conceal the communication from her, or he thought she was asleep so he didn't want to wake her and make her feel lonely? So apparently Jibreel told him to go to the graveyard and pray for forgiveness for them. Again, the whole plot is freaking weird, because what do you mean the messenger angel that tells Muhammad stuff from Allah came to Muhammad to secretly tell him while his wife was improperly dressed, hey, come out to the graveyard and beg Allah for forgiveness on behalf of these dead people. Like, is Allah not aware of those dead people being there and needing forgiveness? Why does Muhammad need to go there and tell Allah, hey, can you please be forgiving towards those dead people? Make any of it make sense. The bro concealed the concealment of the concealment of the communication to cancel the concealment. Yeah, exactly. Moving on to another hadith. Okay, this one I didn't find in English, so I'll just read it in Arabic. You can, fact check me if you want. رأى عمر أمة عليها جلباب فقال عتقتي. What? عتقتي. So Omar saw a female slave wearing a jilbab, wearing a covering garment, and he asked her, were you set free? She said, no. He said, then remove it off your head. Because, we know why? In another version of the hadith, he explained, أتتشبهين بالحرائر. Right here, he says, إنما الجلباب على الحرائر. This is the hijab, essentially. Only free women are supposed to wear this. Take it off. She took her time. She hesitated. So he came to her and hit on her head until she took it off. Let me show the whole thing on the screen. So Omar, the Prophet's right-hand man, one of the Prophet's favorite guys, hit a slave woman till she took off her hijab because she looked too much like a free woman. Now, the next time someone tells you that the hijab is for the protection of women, and the hijab is for modesty, and the hijab is for this, and the hijab is for that, call bullshit on that. Because if the hijab is truly just for modesty and it's objectively a good thing, why would Omar beat a slave for that? And why would Muhammad let Omar go around beating people and doing violent things in the name of Islam, in the name of being the friend of the messenger of Allah? Why? Why did Muhammad not do anything about this? In my opinion, I feel like Muhammad was really spineless against Omar, because Omar did a lot of things that Muhammad couldn't push back on. And this is one of them. If the hijab protects you from anything, like back in the day, I guess, if you were wearing a hijab, you were in danger of being beaten by Umar ibn al-Khattab. The hijab didn't protect you. The hijab put you in danger. Also, to address some of the comments, like there's a Muslim in the comments saying, why aren't you protesting so badly the French laws on, marrying young girls? I don't know what the laws are in France right now. I'm not up to date on what is the minimum age of consent, because that's not the kind of thing that I look into. But I protest it from the perfect man that people think is the perfect man, because it continues to happen, and laws continue to change now, like in Iraq, to allow this to happen. I can't just go about to every country and keep protesting that their age of consent is too low when Muhammad married a 6-year-old. A 6-year-old. So let's not fucking talk about 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds and what is really the age of consent when we're talking about 6-year-olds by the perfect man. I'm sorry for all the F-bombs today, but I do not give a shit. I am sick, and I am doing this because I feel like I have to, because no amount of pushback on this bullshit makes it go away, unfortunately. Here's another hadith. betting and similar pastimes. So in Islam, it is haram to bet. It's haram to play any luck-based games or to bet money on these things. Manners and removing those who play backgammon. Nafi' related that if Abdullah ibn Umar found any of his family playing backgammon, he would beat them and break the board. I believe that is the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He would beat his family members for playing this game and would break the board. Again, this is not Muhammad, but this is the son, if I'm correct, the son of Muhammad's best friends. The son of Muhammad's best friend. Where did they learn these manners from? Where did these people come up with all this violence, if not from Muhammad and his followers? Let's take another hadith. There's like 4 more hadiths or 5 more hadiths, and then we'll get to the next video. So this one's really messed up. It's weird, and we'll see why it's weird. The book or the chapter of, the book of suckling, Ar-Rida'a. Yahya related to me from Malik that Abdullah, it's all he said, she said, by the way. Like most of Islam is built on mostly he said, with the occasional she said, but it's mostly he said. Anyway, he said, a man came to Abdullah ibn Umar when I was with him at the place where judgments were given and asked him about the suckling of an older person, Irda' Kabir. This is a problem that Muhammad Hijab, I don't know if you've heard of Muhammad Hijab, he kind of had a meltdown about this a few years ago with Yasir Qadi, the guy who said that the narrative has holes in it. It was a whole thing. But basically, in Islam, there's this weird, messed up concept where if you breastfeed an adult, they no longer become someone who's not a mahram. They become a mahram. So if you want your guy friend to hang out at your place or at Muhammad's place, he would get one of his wives to breastfeed them. The fuck is that? I don't even know. Like the cope that I've seen from some religious preachers is that, well, they don't have to suckle directly from the breast. They can put it into a cup. What the fuck are we even talking about? And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's not me. It's this weird ass religion. But anyway, let's get back to this weird hadith. So the suckling of an older person. Someone asked about it. Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of Umar, replied, a man came to Umar ibn al-Khattab and said, I have a slave girl and I used to have intercourse with her. Okay, pause again. In Islam, a man can buy or capture a slave during times of war, but during even peace times, a man can buy a slave, doesn't matter where she was captured or who got her from where, and have intercourse with her. Her consent is irrelevant, right? Like she can say no, she can say yes, it doesn't matter. He can have intercourse with her. So when Muslims tell you that Islam is all for like morals and like no premarital sex and stuff, yeah, but you can go buy a literal human being and sleep with them. Fucking weird ass religion. Anyway, man says, I have a slave girl and I used to have intercourse with her. My wife went to her and suckled her. When I went to the girl, and you see what this wife did, supposedly? The wife suckling her, I suppose, is like making her haram for him to marry or sleep with. So essentially, the wife is cock blocking him by making this woman, this slave girl, no longer allowed for him to sleep with. When I went to the girl, my wife told me to watch out because she had suckled her. Omar told him to beat his wife and go to his slave girl because kinship by suckling was only by the suckling of the young. Okay, so thank you for explaining to us, Omar. This is so depraved. Yeah. Where do I even begin? By the way, hit the like button if you haven't already. I'm sorry, this is not the usual tone that I take for these videos, but again, it's hard. For years, I've been talking about this bullshit for years, and it almost feels like it barely makes a difference because to this very day, there are apologists who make excuses for all this stuff. So bear with me, please. Give me a like, help me do this work because it is taking a toll on me. And today, I'm telling you as it is. So in this weird hadith, like the dynamics of this is so messed up. You have a man whose wife is rightfully jealous of his side piece, of his slave that he sleeps with. So she goes to breastfeed her so that he can't sleep with her anymore because there's this weird ass rule in Islam. And he complains to Umar ibn al-Khattab to it. And Umar ibn Khattab tells him to beat the wife and go sleep with the slave anyway, because this rule only applies if you feed them when they're young. Do you see the levels of bullshit and fuckery there are in this? What? Like, where do I even begin? Do you guys want me to say anything else about this hadith? Yeah, Islam gave rights to women. Yeah. Like that's the weird thing about this religion. And as we'll see later, again, I know this has been an hour, but we'll watch Nauman Ali Khan's video, because why the hell not? He will give an example of how, like, a man can adopt, because in Islam there's no adoption, but a man can, like, care for orphan girls and then someday marry them because they're not mahram, because he's not their mahram, because they're not blood related. It's so messed up. Like, it's there's so much weird stuff in this religion, and they'll tell you that the way to make them mahram is to, like, have your wife suckle them or something, but only when they're kids. Bro, when someone says that they spent their whole life studying Islam, a big portion of, like, someone spending their whole life studying and arguing Islam is arguing how to make this bullshit make sense. Question by Some Ink. Okay. Some Ink. Okay. If Muslims who don't believe that beating your wife is okay lean into these hadiths, aren't there more chances they'd have to consider it fine? That's the thing. The problem with this inconsistency of, like, do we trust hadiths? Do we not trust hadiths? Is the Quran perfect? Well, yes, it is. Is that best case scenario? A Muslim comes across this stuff in the Quran and the hadith and thinks, there's no way God said this. No way. I can't believe this anymore. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is they'd come across this stuff and say, well, egg to my face. What can I do? Like, Allah said so. Muhammad said so. I guess it's okay for a man to beat his wife sometimes. I guess it's okay as long as he doesn't hit her in the face. But what can we do? Like, we can't just pretend that these things don't exist and hope that a Muslim doesn't come across them and doesn't follow them. It's so funny that as I'm explaining all this, there's still a believer going, like, copium. Who's copium with what, my dude? Like, is it my religion that talks about breastfeeding adults and young kids and slaves and beating your wife and all that? That's not me. That is not me. All right. Let's read this other hadith together. Let me put it on screen. Oh, it's already on screen. So the chapter of giving one's wife the choice does not count as a divorce unless it is intended as such. I am so lost about where this is going to go. Let's see where's the juicy part, because I don't know if I need to. Yeah, okay. So Abu Bakr, one of the Prophet's companions, came and sought permission, and I believe Abu Bakr was Aisha's father. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm kind of starting to forget the lore, thankfully, now. He came and sought permission to see Muhammad. He found people sitting at his door, and none amongst them had been granted permission, but it was granted to Abu Bakr, and he went in. Then came Umar, and he sought permission, and it was granted to him. He found Muhammad sitting sad and silent with his wives around him. Umar said, I would say something which would make the Prophet laugh. So he said, Muhammad, I wish you had seen the treatment, the daughter of Khadija, when you asked me some money, and I got up and I slapped her on her neck. Muhammad laughed and said, they are around me, as you can see, asking for extra money. I don't know if we need to read the rest of the hadith, but, like, you see what happened here? Muhammad's bestie, the violent Umar ibn Khattab, the walking testosterone dispenser on legs, said, I beat my wife for asking for too much money, or asking me for money. I beat her on the neck. Didn't Muhammad say that don't beat your wife on the face? So I guess this is the line. So beat her here is okay, here is not. Okay, got it. So Muhammad laughed at his friend saying, I beat her on her neck because she asked me for money. Again, I remind you of the verse that said that men are owed this respect because of the money that they spent on their wives. But don't you dare ask him for too much, or he can spank you on your neck. And the Prophet, the messenger of Allah, is going to sit there and laugh about it. fuck this so much. I can't deal with this. Is there anything else that's interesting in this hadith aside from Muhammad being a psychopath? So Muhammad was sitting there. The daughter of Khadija, if I'm not mistaken, that is Muhammad's daughter, right? Because Khadija was his first wife. So Umar was married to Muhammad's daughter. What a fucking weird ass friendship this is, where you marry your son's daughter and you marry your daughter to your other son. What is this weird stuff? And then he beats your daughter and you laugh about it. So Umar stood up before Hafsa and slapped her. You ask Muhammad, you ask Allah's messenger, which he does not possess. They said, by Allah, we do not ask Allah's messenger for anything he does not possess. Then he withdrew from them for a month or 29 days. Then this verse was revealed to him. Prophet, say to thy wives, for a mighty reward, blah, blah, blah. He then, can someone look up this verse? Ya ayyuhan nabiy qul li azwajika hatta للمحسنات منكن أجرا عظيما. Someone please look it up for me, because I can't do this right now, because I want to read what that verse is that was revealed later. He then went first to Aisha and said, I want to propound something to you, Aisha, but wish no hasty reply before you consult your parents. She said, what is that? He recited to her the verse, whereupon she said, is it about you that I should consult my parents, Muhammad? No, I choose Allah, his messenger, and the last abode. Because he was blackmailing her with the afterlife, people. Like he convinced this child that he was a godsend, and he was blackmailing her with the afterlife. And she chose him. But I ask you to not tell any of your wives what I have said. He replied, not one of them will ask me without my informing her. God did not send me to be harsh. What the fuck did God send you to do then? Laugh at people when they beat women in front of you? Or cause harm? But he has sent me to teach and make things easy. Muhammad has made my life personally very difficult. Make things easy. What else? What's next? Here's another hadith. We're almost done with the hadiths, and then we can watch Omar Sulaiman. Let me read a couple of chats real quick, because I haven't been taking a look at those. Thank you, by the way, everyone, for the super chats. Emir says, I think most arguments made by apologists muddy the waters and shift the topic from are women treated right to are women treated like a human. I think they always bring it back to like, but look at the West and how women are, treated in the West. Honey, women in the West are treated much better than women in Muslim countries and communities. Nahun says, there's another hadith that this suckling thing was contained in ayat, which was eaten by Aisha's goat. Why couldn't Allah protect his book, the protection of which he has entrusted to himself? I can't remember if it was, there was a hadith about Aisha saying that there were verses about irda' kabir, suckling of adults, and what's it called? Stoning, killing someone through stoning. That was also in a verse, but the verses were eaten by a goat and they didn't make it to the final cut of the Quran. But also the spirit of that verse of stoning carried on. So that one continued. Oh, Christine, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, you're making a difference. We need more people like you that aren't genocidal psychopaths. Ted, thank you as well. Says, the Romans gave women actual rights before Islam did. Christina, thank you so much for the super chats. And she says, thanks for the hard work. Let's see. All right, let's continue. Let's continue with the hadith. There's someone in the comments who keeps like ignoring everything that we're talking about and is accusing us of being like somehow like coping or something. I don't know where the cope is here. Idris, thank you for Ted, thank you for the super chat. Says, someone in the super chat supports child marriage and thinks women are second-class citizens. I think that is implied whenever there are a big group of Muslims watching the videos. There's at least one person who has to defend this, and that's the sad thing, is that it's working back from the conclusion, that Islam is perfect, so there's nothing that we can really object to here. Here's another hadith, chapter on marriage. The book of marriage, the chapter of hitting women. Again, apologists, don't you dare fucking say the Quran doesn't say to beat women. Every other hadith is talking about beating women that I've shown today, I mean. I was a guest at the home of Omar one night. Who said this? Someone said this. Ash'ath said this. He was a guest of Omar one night, and in the middle of the night, he went and hit his wife. Omar hit his wife, and I separated them. When he went to bed, he said to me, "Oh, Ash'ath, learn from me something that I heard from the Messenger of Allah." Again, this all traces back to Muhammad. A man should not be asked why he beats his wife. And do not go to sleep until you have prayed the witr. So, two different things. And I forgot the third thing. Well, thank you for remembering the first two, Mishath. What else? What's next? Is there another hadith? Okay, last hadith. Last one, and then we watch Nauman Ali Khan's video. The book of dressing, the chapter of green clothes. It's funny to me that this is the focus of the chapter. I've told this story before on the channel, but it's crazy. I have to tell it again. Rifa divorced his wife, whereupon Abdurrahman, blah, 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 married her. Aisha said, the lady came wearing a green veil and complained to Aisha of her husband and showed her a green spot on her skin caused by beating. She bruised so bad her skin was green. Okay, in the chapter, the focus here is on whether or not she can wear green clothes. That's the conclusion that they got from this. But anyway, her skin was as green as her clothes. And Muhammad didn't say, you're so bruised, this is the opposite of what I preached. He just went with it. So it was the habit of ladies to support each other. This they make it seem like the habit of ladies to support each other is like a bad thing or a weird thing. Like a woman being a girl's girl is a thing that is noteworthy. It's the habit of women to support each other. Well, if women didn't support each other, who's going to support them? If the best that they can do is go complain to the wife of the cult leader, what else can they do? So yeah, it was a habit of women to support each other. Not that it's a human thing to like protest that a woman is being beaten. No, it's just their womanly things. So when Muhammad came, Aisha said, I have not seen any women suffering as much as the believing women. Look, her skin is greener than her clothes. Do I need to spell this out for Muslims? Aisha herself, Muhammad's favorite wife, was saying, I have not seen any women suffering as much as Muslim women. Look at how green her bruises are. When Abdurrahman heard that his wife has gone to the Prophet, he came with his 2 sons from another wife. She said, by Allah, I have done no wrong to him, but he is impotent and is as useless to me as this, showing the fringe of her garment. So for some context here, why did she basically say his dick doesn't work? Because a Muslim woman has no right to divorce her husband. A Muslim woman can't just say, hey, I don't like this guy. He's a bit of a jerk. He smells bad. I don't want to be married to him anymore. No, she has to have a good reason. She has to have a good reason. Like, he is impotent. He cannot perform in bed. Therefore, I should not be with him. Because she can't just say, I want to divorce. A man can say, I want to divorce at any point. He could say, Anti talaq, I divorce you. And that's it. It's done. And he could take her back again. And that's it. It's done. And if he does it 3 times, if he says you are divorced 3 times, then it's super done. And they can't get back together unless she marries someone else and then the other guy leaves her. So you see how fucked up this is? And the point of that rule is so that men don't get too emotional, too angry. And they say that women are the emotional ones. So that men don't get too emotional and they don't divorce their wife like 3 times and not think about it. So it's supposed to hurt his ego when his ex-wife is fucked by another guy and then he takes her back. So the deterrent for divorces that stem from a guy's emotionality is that the woman has to bear the price. Make this make sense. But anyway, she says here, she says he is impotent. Let me put the hadith on screen again. He is impotent and as useless to me as this, holding a cloth. Abdurrahman said, by Allah, O Allah's messenger, she has told a lie. I am very strong and can satisfy her, but she is disobedient and wants to go back to her ex-husband. And Muhammad said, if that is your intention, then know that it is unlawful for you to remarry Rif'a unless Abdurrahman has had sexual intercourse with you. Again, that bullshit that I was talking about earlier. You can't. So she divorced Rif'a. I don't know how they divorced, but they separated. They divorced. Now she's with Abdurrahman. And he says, you cannot go back to Rif'a unless Abdurrahman fucks you. What is that? What is that logic? What is that logic? Make it make sense. There's an annoying person in the comments who's like really upset by all of this, so let's just ban them. Make this make sense. The logic here is that he has to sleep with you before you can go back to your ex. Anyway, let's continue because it gets way crazier. So instead of Muhammad saying, "Hey, her skin is green, dude, what the fuck? Why are you beating this woman till she's bruising? Why are you doing that?" He says, "Wait, you have to sleep with him though before you go back to your ex." And yeah, if that is your intention, it's unlawful for you to remarry unless Abdurrahman has had sexual intercourse with you. Then Muhammad saw two boys with Abdurrahman and asked him, "Are these your sons?" And Abdurrahman said, "Yes." And the Prophet said, "You claim what you claim, that he is impotent, but by Allah, these boys resemble him as a crow resembles a crow." So let me translate that to people in the 21st century. He says to her, "So you claim that you want to divorce because he's impotent, but he has two kids, so clearly his dick works. Couldn't it be the case that he had two kids with another woman before, which is the case, but it no longer works? Could it be the case that it no longer works with her, or he's just not good in bed and she wants a divorce? Couldn't it be the case that she just wants to leave this man that beats her to go back to her ex, which is apparently not as bad?" But instead of any of that, Muhammad says, "Well, you can't go back to your ex till this guy sleeps with you. Also, he seems to have successfully impregnated a woman twice in the past. Therefore, he must be good in bed." That's not how orgasms work, by the way, for women. And also, he said nothing about the beating. So please don't bullshit me about Muhammad being the best man and never beat a woman and all that stuff. There he is, under his nose. Women are being beaten because of his words. And all he could do is make up some bullshit rules about who has to sleep with who before they can get back with who. Astaghfirullah, as they say. Okay, now it's time for the Nu'man Ali Khan video. Give me a second to put that on screen. Okay, so this video is titled, well, I want to show you the thumbnail, but it's kind of hard to show you the thumbnail when I'm trying to show you the video itself. Give me a sec. I'll make this work. All right, so look at the screen right now. That's messed up, Nu'man Ali Khan. This is the thumbnail, right? Hitting women, that's messed up. Let's watch it together.
I was like, why don't you ever say it?
From the beginning.
Oh, things are good. Things are good. No questions from anybody. Just something on my mind. Something that's been on my mind for a long time. Something that we have a big problem with all over the Muslim world. I thought it was like a Desi thing. It's not. It's all over the Muslim world. It's hitting women.
Okay, I'm glad he said that. So one thing that I keep hearing every time I point out something bad in Islam is, "Oh, that's not religion, that's culture. That's not religion, that's culture." Well, isn't it a coincidence that, like he said he thought it was just a Desi world. Isn't it a coincidence that all over the Muslim world, men are beating their wives at high rates? What culture does a Desi person and a North African person have in common? Their food is different. Their language is different. Everything about them is different except Islam. So what is the common denominator between these violent men and these two cultures? Islam. So of course, it's not just a Desi problem. Of course, it's not a Desi problem.
Dude. And justifying it from Quran. Because you know the ayah says, "Wadribuhunna," and hit them. And so using that to say, well, you're obviously allowed to hit women. And when I started looking up this subject, I wasn't
I'm going to speed it up a little bit.
satisfied with stuff that I read. It just didn't add up. So I decided to keep on digging. Until a couple of years ago, I went to, I still remember, Professor Abdul Halim in Oxford. And I sat with him and I took my Quran questions to him. And this was one of them. Help me understand this ayah. Right. And I want to tell you, I want to share with you what I learned from him and my own thoughts on it. But before I do, you know, most of the time when we talk about this ayah, we're like explaining this to non-Muslims. Yeah. Which is so ingenuine, dude. we need to have a conversation about this with Muslims.
I mean, to some extent, I agree with that. It's that most Muslims aren't really aware of it. And when they are made aware of it, it's usually in the context of having to defend their religion. And he says here something that I, on surface level, agree with. You should have these conversations among Muslims. I agree. But then, as you're going to see, he's just going to do a 180 on that.
This is our faith. This is our book. This is what we believe. I believe every single ayah is perfect. Every single ayah could not be.
That's what I'm saying. How are you going to have a conversation and a discussion about it with Muslims if the conclusion is that every single verse is perfect? What is their discussion to be had? Hey, don't beat your wives, even though the verse says beat your wives, because the verse is perfect. This is why there's no discussion that can be had amongst Muslims, because there is no discussion when the conclusion is already obvious to you.
Any better than it is. It's the most beautiful gift of Allah on this earth.
You cannot make it any better than it is. You don't think anyone can write the verse in a way that is better so that women don't get beaten? Really? Like, really? You mean to tell me that this is the best that God can do? Then I can't believe that that is God, because that's an incompetent God.
No ayat should be considered a curse. No ayat should be considered negative, or, why is that here?
Yeah.
Because if you even question why is this here, you're questioning the idea of Allah revealing Himself.
See, that's what I'm saying. You can't even have a discussion about these verses, because if you question them, you're questioning the religion, and that makes you a kafir. So nobody's going to have discussions about this. So the only time you're going to have discussions about this is when you have to justify it to outsiders.
Like the idea of Allah sending revelation, the greatest gift ever given. Ar-Rahman 'allama al-Quran. The unimaginably merciful is the one who taught the Quran. Like, even if you question or you think less of one ayah, what good is your iman?
What the fuck is iman? Iman is faith. Iman is, I believe without seeing. So don't you dare say that discussion or thinking or conclusions or logic have anything to do with it, if at the same time you say even questioning it would make you lose your faith. Stop thinking. Just rely on faith.
Where to go? So protecting the integrity of this ayah, to me, is like fundamental, because if, I know many Muslim women I've met have a problem with this ayah.
Yeah, no shit. No shit. They have a problem with the verse that says beat your wife. And you want to protect the integrity of the verse that says beat your wife. Again, the priorities for Muslims are always affirming that Islam is perfect, affirming that every verse is perfect. You can't even improve on the writing of the verse. You can't improve on a single letter of the verse. That is the priority here.
And their concern is legitimate. But to have a problem with an ayah and you're Muslim,
you see what I mean? So this is what I meant when I said that I was stuck in Islam for so long because of rhetoric like this. Because if you have a problem with this verse, the problem is you. You can't be a Muslim and have a problem with a verse. You can't. So instead of thinking, oh, I guess I'm not a Muslim then, we don't have the confidence to believe that we could be right because of demeaning language that's been said about disbelievers since before we could even understand language. So his view here is that you can't even question it because that would make you a non-Muslim. So every one of us would push down the questioning and think, I'm a Muslim, I just don't have to think about this too hard.
Needs to be something resolved here, because I have a problem understanding this ayah, which is a little bit different from, actually no, it's a world different from, I have a problem with this ayah.
Fuck right off. Okay, so did you hear that? He said, let's hear.
Actually no, because I have a problem understanding this ayah, which is a little bit different from, actually no, it's a world different from, I have a problem with this ayah.
You can't have a problem with this ayah. You have a problem understanding the ayah. Even if the ayah spits in your face and says, your husband can beat you, you have a problem understanding it. It's your problem. It's not the verse. Fuck right off.
That's a crime.
That is a crime. If you have a problem with the verse that says you can be beaten, that is a crime. You see, like to me, I can laugh about this. I can have emotional reactions about this. At the end of the day, no one's going to beat me. But there are women and men who are still stuck in this religion, and they think it's a crime if I think that there's something wrong with God telling men to beat their wives. It's a crime.
About
Fuck
faith
right off. It's not a crime.
itself, But how? That's a crime.
Okay, I don't usually make fun of people's appearances, but this mustache beard combo is a crime, bro. Don't do this. It's not a good look.
That's about faith itself, But how does...
It's about faith itself. So if you have faith, you'll have no objection to a man beating his wife, as Allah said.
How does one understand it?
That's the thing, right? Let's help people understand it. So first and foremost, every surah is perfect. No, you cannot take an ayah out of a surah, put it in a different surah. That's the first thing, right? So this belongs to.
I can take an ayah out of a surah and put it in places you have never heard to put, ayahs in. It doesn't mean anything. You can't, like, perfect, and you can't put it in a different surah. Those are unrelated. I could put an ayah wherever the heck I want. You're saying it's going to sound weird if you put a verse in a different place because everyone already knows the order that they go in. But that is not criteria for perfection. But carry on.
To Surah An-Nisa. This means it does not belong in Surah Al-Ma'idah or Tawbah or Baqarah, or it belongs in Surah An-Nisa. And Surah An-Nisa is a perfect conversation orchestrated by Allah, intended as such. In other words, the first thing when we understand an ayah is
So Surah An-Nisa, as I mentioned, the chapter of women is not a chapter where Allah addresses women personally. He doesn't say, "Oh dear women, oh dear, female followers of Allah, oh dear whatever." It's tell your women, do this to your women. So how infantilizing is it that, when apologists or progressives say that Islam loves women, Islam is great for women, Allah doesn't even address women. He talks to them through their men. So yeah, it's so befitting that this verse about beating your wife would be in the chapter about, women in that demeaning way.
Which surah is it placed in? What conversation is it a part of? So Surah An-Nisa.
Okay, pause for a second, because I know this is really annoying to all of you too. Poor apostate with their trauma. It's gaslighting to like the nth extent. You have a guy who's making excuses for wife beating on screen. Or he's making excuses for the verse about wife beating, but it's us who are traumatized. It's us with the problems. It's not the backwards ass ideology that allows beating women. That's the problem. So you don't get to be that infantilizing to us in our space. You could do that in your space, which you do. Muslims do that to us all the time. But here we can emphatically tell you to fuck off. Let's continue.
Has a number of legal instructions. It talks about another big subject for a lot of people, polygamy. Mm-hmm. It talks about inheritance law. It talks about, the punishment of adultery. It talks the early punishments for adultery, at least. It talks about exceptional cases. It talks about who is it haram for you to marry. Now, you know what all of those things have in common? Every one of them, when Allah talks about them, He talks about the most unusual cases.
Okay, so it's funny. He tries to make it seem like Surah An-Nisa only talks about the most unusual cases. Therefore what? That like beating your wife is an unusual edge case? There's nothing in that verse that says, "Oh, people, usually try not to be a dick to your wife, but this chapter is for the special cases." There's nothing like that.
That's the common thread that ties all of these together, the most unusual cases.
Oh, also, that's a good point. Thank you, Arwa, for reminding me. The inheritance law doesn't even add up. Look it up. I'll make a video about it someday if I have the time. God got it wrong. The math does not add up. Like, Muslims actually acknowledge they have to do like extra different math afterwards because the math in the Quran for inheritance law does not add up. So there's an imperfection right there. But yeah, so he says that it's all like edge cases. So like, it's like what? Finish the thought.
First unusual case, if you were raising 4 girls as orphans, and they gained a certain age, and they're not your mahram.
What is that certain age? Say it with a full chest. No, man. What is that certain age for the orphan girls that you raised that you can marry? Say it.
They're not part of your family. You're allowed.
You hear that? They're not part of your family. So this is that bullshit about the inheritance stuff. So Muhammad saw his Zayd, his adopted son, before he outlawed adoption, had a wife, and Muhammad liked her, or he felt lust towards her. And then somehow either like he told his adopted son, or his adopted son broke up with her or something, but somehow Zayd divorced her. And then Allah revealed the verse that you can, marry her. And then Muhammad said, no adoption in that way. You can't give your son your last name, and they're not like considered part of the family. They're not mahram. So if you have like a biological son and an adopted daughter, technically they can have intercourse. So they shouldn't be in the same room. They shouldn't be brother and sister, and so on and so forth. So here he says you can You can raise 4 orphan girls till they reach a certain age and they're not family, so you get to sleep with them.
If you were raising 4 girls as orphans, and they gained a certain age, and they're not your mahram, they're not part of your family, you're allowed to marry one of them or 2 of them or 3 of them. Or
Fuck right off. I did not see that coming. You're allowed to marry 1 of them or 2 of them or 3 of them. So you're starting a little wife factory by adopting orphans. What religion allows this? Like, Muslims love to talk about how with atheism, there's no morality. In secular countries, there's no morality. Can you, in a secular country right now, adopt 4 young girls, and then someday, when they're old enough, whatever that age is, don't ask Muhammad, marry 1 or 2 or 3 of them? Fuck right off. Don't talk to me about morals. Don't talk to me about where do you get your morals from. Fuck right off. I can't.
whatever. Is that a usual case? Somebody raising 4 orphan girls, or even polygamy when it's talked about, which is a separate subject?
I guess his point here is that all these edge cases discussed in this verse, they're not usual cases. So, like, the wife beating is not a usual case. It's taking up real estate in the one final perfect message from God. God decided that this is important. God wrote this before he created the universe, before he created Earth, before he created humans, before he created the mechanisms that resulted in the evolution that brought us here and all the organisms that we see around us. This whole plot, before all that, God sat down and wrote, I'm going to write about the guy who adopts 4 little girls and then marries them. I'm going to write about the guy who beats his wife, before creating the entire universe.
Subject. It's talked about in the most unusual circumstance. You see what I'm saying? Even more unusual. Like, it's uncomfortable even to listen.
And that verse about how you can't marry your wife and your mother, your mothers and your aunts and blah blah blah. Oh, thank you for telling us that. Wow, what an edge case. But also, you can marry your cousin. But also, you can marry your friend's young daughter. You can go to their house, Aisha. You can go to her father's house and spend every day there. So her first conscious thoughts are about you. And then what? Like, that you can do. But thank you, Allah, for telling me I can't marry my own mother.
Your mothers are haram for you to marry. Your aunts, your daughters.
This is why they say, well, why don't you sleep with your own mother? Like, that's the gotcha that Muslims have for us sometimes, because they need an instruction book to say, don't marry your own mother.
Daughters are haram for you to marry. Your aunts are. Why would Allah say that? He's not talking about normal circumstances. He's talking about psychologically disturbed, weird people out there. Some crazy case can happen.
So you're telling me Surah An-Nisa, the chapter of women, is all about psychologically disturbed, weird edge cases? Really? Allah made a whole chapter called An-Nisa, the women, just for disturbed men. How fucking ironic. The chapter called Women is for disturbed men. Like, he's contorting himself backwards and backwards so much that I am worried for his spine.
And so this needs to be spelled out. See, the thing with law is not for law-abiding citizens. Actually, laws are for criminals. They cover the periphery of society, not the main center of society. That's what Surah An-Nisa is doing. It's actually covering the outlying crazy case situations. Here's what you're going to do. Now you know how to deal with these extreme situations, which automatically covers all the normal situations, right? If you keep that in mind, then you get to this ayah. And even that hit them is part of a very long ayah, which begins with men are caretakers of women.
We went through the ayah together, so he can't bullshit us.
Now tell me, caretaker, qawam, the same word shares a root with the name of Allah, qayyum. Allah is the caretaker of everything. Do you imagine Allah is caretaker hitting?
Okay. So thank you for making that connection. So the way that Allah infantilizes us, right? Or like rightfully, if Allah is the God and he created everything and he's infinitely powerful and we're these tiny little things, God is our caretaker. Similar word is used for men over women. Why? Are you saying that there's a hierarchy? Yes, that's what the Quran is saying. And then he says, would Allah the caretaker harm you? Let's hear it again.
Striking. Do you imagine Allah is caretaker hitting? Striking? Is that part of his care?
Is that part of his care? Does that sound like Allah to you? You mean the guy who tortures people infinitely for believing in the wrong God or not believing in a God? Can you imagine him striking? No, why is Allah? Allah's just so cute. He's just a little baby Allah. What the fuck are you talking about, man?
That's not everything. Do you imagine Allah as caretaker hitting, striking?
Yes, I can.
Is that part of his care?
Yes, it is part of his care.
That's not the thought that comes in your mind when you think of.
That's why they use this like contradictory religion to just be like, Allah is the most merciful, but also he's the most vengeful. Which one is it? Make it make sense. You can't choose both. He's the most kawaii, cute, little caring thing. He would never hit you, but also Allah would drown the entirety of the fucking planet and save one family and a pair of, every animal supposedly because he's mad. Yes, I can imagine that entity striking me. Yes.
Taking care. It's already being negated as the ayah begins.
You're telling me the ayah negates itself, therefore, okay, so don't beat your wife because you're a caretaker. Oh, I need to mute myself for the amount of cussing that I actually want to do.
And what are the authority in what sense? قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Because Allah gave some preference over others. Allah did not say because Allah gave men preference over women. He could have said that. It's his words. He could have said,
What is this like? What is this cope? He says, "Bima faddallahu ba'dahum ala ba'd." The verse says, because of what God gave some of them over the others, and he didn't say men over women. But who's the qawamun? Who's dominant? So the verse reads, men are dominant over women because of what he preferred some of them over the others. Clearly he means because of what he preferred the men over the women. He's not saying because some women are better than some men. So what is this point even? What are you saying, Nu'man?
مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الرِّجَالَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Some preference over others. Allah did not say because Allah gave men preference over women. He could have said that. It's his words. He could have said بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الرِّجَالَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ أو بِمَا فَضَّلَهُمُ اللَّهُ.
And if he said that, no one would take issue with that. If the verse, or not he, if the verse was بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الرِّجَالَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, or because the men are better than the women, they wouldn't take an issue with that. So what is the wisdom here supposed to be if at the end of the day, the dominance is coming from the men towards the women, even if, as you say, some of them have better qualities than others. So some women are better than some men. What the fuck are you on about? Okay, let's address this comment real quick. Aladdin, and if God wants to dump you in hell because he wants to because he wants to, he can, you are his property. So I always see, again, this is the love for authoritarianism that I mentioned earlier. Allah could do whatever the heck he wants to you because it's his right, because he made you. I'm sure I can do nothing about it, right? If this whole plot is true and Allah created me and he wants to torture me, I can't do anything about it. But you can't convince me that that's good. You can't convince me that that's merciful and loving and all kawaii and like, would he do that? Would Allah strike you? Then just like come out and say it. Allah is an evil entity and he does whatever the fuck he wants. If that's the case, then we can both agree that if that was actually true, then Allah would be an evil God that existed. But there's no proof that Allah even exists. So yeah, but creating something or having something as your property doesn't give you a right to abuse it if it is sentient. Here's an example. See that right here? That's one of my two cats. He is mine. I am the one who rescued him. Without me, he would either be adopted by someone else, but if nobody adopted him, he'd be on the streets and he'd be dead. Does that mean that I get to do whatever the heck I want to him because he's my property? Because I feed him? Because I take care of him? Of course not. I never understand that logic, which is like Allah could do whatever the heck he wants to you. Okay, but let's just own it for what it is.
He could have said it because Allah preferred men. He said because Allah gave some preferences to some over others. In other words, women have certain things they have preference in. So Allah gave them certain benefits and men were given certain benefits. And
so you're telling me that women sometimes have more benefits than men, but still the men are dominant and still the men can beat the women. Make it make sense. No, man.
In this case, men have been given the responsibility of maintaining women. Okay, fine. وَبِمَا أَنْفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. And because of what they spend from their money.
I can remember what I mentioned. They always say this as if like the money is a perk. Like you marry a Muslim man, he has to spend money on you. But then he owns you. He's dominant over you. You're his property. He gets to say whether you leave the house or not. Like the video I showed you earlier was the sheikh can beat his wife if she chooses to leave the house without his consent. That's what the money is buying.
فَالصَّالِحَاتُ قَانِتَاتٌ حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ بِمَا حَفِظَ اللَّهِ. Then good women are subservient to Allah. I'm adding to Allah because that's what qunut is used in the Quran. It's not subservient to their husbands.
And as I said, what is the difference at that point? If you're subservient to Allah and your husband wields the power of Allah that Allah instilled in him, the power of being a dominant man, her subservience to Allah is expressed as subservience to her husband. And her disobedience to her husband can be framed as disobedience to Allah.
It's qunut everywhere in the Quran, like dua al-qunut, qanitin, qumu lillahi qanitin, is every time it's used for Allah. How are you going to say now it's being used for husbands? Good women are subservient to Allah. Hafizatun lil ghaib, they're guardians of what is in the unseen, meaning they guard their dignity.
Again, it's funny that we don't hear a verse about how good men guard their balls. No, you go spread your seed. Go sleep with the, however many women you want, if you buy them, if you own them as property. You can marry 4 women and spread your seed. But women, hide your chastity, hide your shame.
And they guard their faith, even when their husband's not around. Hafizatun lil ghaib. That's one of the meanings. There are other meanings too. Bima hafizallah, on account of what Allah decided that should.
Wait, what other meanings of what?
And they guard their faith, even when their husband's not around. Hafizatun lil ghaib. That's one of the meanings. There are other meanings too. Bima hafizallah, on account of what Allah decided that should be guarded.
Again, there's nothing about men who guard their penises when their wives aren't around.
Then he says, now, by the way, so far, they're obedient to Allah and they guard the chastity of the marriage and their own chastity. They guard the integrity. They don't cheat on their husband, basically. Okay. Now he says, وَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزَهُنَّ. And as for those from whom you are afraid of their uprising. That's the next part. Now, I asked Professor Abd Al-Halim, what is...
Keep in mind, afraid of, not even those who you catch in the middle of getting pounded by your neighbor, all the bullshit, excuses that they make up. You're afraid of her disobedience.
Is this uprising? Because this uprising is used later on in the surah when a man is abusive to his wife.
Can someone pull up that ayah later in Surah An-Nisa?
So a man potentially hitting his wife or hurting her or going against her in some aggressive way, that's also nushuz.
Can someone please look up that verse for nushuz? Because I'm fairly certain the context of that is nowhere near the same.
Okay. وَإِنْ إِمْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا نُشُوزًا.
Someone please look that up. وَإِنْ إِمْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا نُشُوزًا.
If a woman was afraid from her husband of an uprising, meaning some kind of outrageous behavior.
Because if I remember correctly, and Hassan Adwan had mentioned this earlier, in that case, then the verse says, "Then find peace among you," or some bullshit like that. It doesn't say, "Then beat him." Then find your brother to beat him. It says, "Find some peace among you."
The question though is, what is outrageous behavior for women? Now, some people say outrageous behavior for women is, I asked her to put 2 spoons of chai, she put 3. Idrazra.
Okay, why look at these silly examples that are obviously not outrageous? What about, I asked her not to leave the house and she left the house? Or, I don't let her leave the house at all and she left. That is an example. So why are you bullshitting us with the tea example, Nauman?
That's nushuz. Quran says that's an uprising. Or she raised her voice. So I asked Professor Abd Al-Halim, what is nushuz? And he... Also,
a woman raising her voice in front of her man could be considered, grounds for beating her in Islam. I'm fairly certain that's the case.
He's like, the ayah, it has a contrast. Here are good women, and here are women that have an uprising, which means they do the opposite of what good women do.
What does that contrast even mean? What is he saying? He's saying there are good women and there are bad women who deserve to be beat.
Good women are subservient to Allah. This woman has now started defying Allah. Good women are loyal to their husbands. This woman is now what? Cheating on her husband.
Thank you for making my fucking point for me. You can't just keep saying subservient to Allah when you're implying subservient to her husband. You just made the connection right there.
And the husband says, Allah says to the husband, if you're afraid that she's doing this, not that she is doing it, but you're afraid that she's doing it. She hasn't done it yet, but he's developing a fear and it's getting bigger and bigger.
He's going to contradict himself in a couple of minutes.
And وَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ as opposed to khiftum, not you were afraid, but you continue to be afraid. In other words, he's getting suspicious and he's getting more suspicious.
This is fan wanking. This is like, why did the author say that the drapes were blue? Like, stop fucking trying to read into everything. He's saying because the tense is that you are afraid, not pastly afraid, then you continue to be afraid. Get to the point.
More suspicious. It's lingering. He notices things about her that he's like, what's going on here? And so Allah says, فَعِظُوهُنَّ, then give them advice. Listen, something's happening. Why are you going out late at night with makeup on? Or what?
Did Allah say in the verse, why are you going out late at night with makeup on? Where are you getting this from? Is this, what is the source of inspiration here, Nu'man? Is your ass a source of revelation? Like, does Jibreel put revelation up your ass and that's where you find the information and you pull it out of your ass?
What's going on? Tell me what's going on. I need to know. Try to counsel them. Doesn't work. You tried it regularly, didn't work. Wahjuruhunna. Leave the bed. Abandon them. Fil madaji' in the beds. Don't sleep with them. You're disgusted by what you know is the fear is growing. You haven't seen anything, but the fear is growing. It's gotten really, really bad. Now it gets to the worst case. The worst case is she's actually caught.
She's caught what? Nowhere in the verse does she say she's caught doing anything. And وَاللَّاتِ تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزَهُنَّ, those who you fear their disobedience, فَعِظُوهُنَّ, immediately, then, advise them, then leave them in bed, then beat them. It's not even then. It says wa. Wa means and. So if we're going to cut all the apologetics, you can actually say, I'm going to start with beating her. I'll advise her and beat her, because it doesn't say do it, wait a day, wait 3 days, and then if she continues to wear makeup and go out late at night or whatever bullshit he just said. Just said if you fear her disobedience, do this, do that. Has nothing to do with cheating. Absolutely nothing to do with cheating. That's the bullshit that they've come up with, is that if you catch your wife cheating, then you could beat her a little bit. Let's keep listening.
He sees her with another man. Something crazy. And he sees.
How about you say it? He's like, he sees her with another. It's something crazy. Just finish the fucking sentence. He sees her with another man. And what is he supposed to do if a man sees his wife with another man? In Islam, she would get flogged. She would get stoned for that. So no, you don't get to say, oh, he beats her a little bit. There's already something for that in Islam. You know that, Nu'man. Why are you bullshitting?
He's this, and he loses his mind. And what does he do? He hits her.
Oh,
By the way, let's.
Poor guy. Put yourself in the position of this poor guy whose wife goes out late at night, wears makeup, gets, he gets cheated on, he gets cuckolded. So you hit her a little bit. So what? That's not what the verse says, Nu'man.
Let's take Muslim out of this. Some dude, not even married, with his girlfriend, he sees another man. What you do? Yeah. Is that a natural? Well, a girl would do it. A guy would do it.
Yeah, snaps.
You snap.
Look at that.
With his girlfriend, take Muslim. He hits it.
I hate the expression on his face. This like frozen smile. This like, I'm peaceful. I'm kind. Just look at my face. Your emotions need to, change based on what you're saying. You can't just say he hit her and you smile with a big, shit-eating grin. You can't do that. It doesn't look cute. It looks psychopathic. Let's keep listening.
By the way, let's take Muslim out of this. What you do?
Yeah.
Is that a natural? Well, a girl would do it. A guy would do it.
Yeah, snaps.
You snap. Now he hit her, or he pushed her, something he did, and he feels bad.
Yeah.
How could I have done that? Allah says, I'm giving you license in that crazy case.
Do you have a law on speed dial or something? Again, does Allah reside up your ass? Is that your source of information? Because where did you get this from that Allah says, hey, bro, if your wife cheats on you, hit her a little bit. It's okay. I give you license. That's okay. Where is any of that mentioned?
I'll let you get away with that one.
I'll let you get away with that one. Okay, here's some, I guess I have to explain this to some Muslims like him. If your wife is cheating on you, get evidence, go to a divorce lawyer, get her ass in court, and then you won't even have to pay for her life because she has broken the trust between you and she will pay the consequences. You divorce her and you leave her and you move on. You don't beat her. That doesn't fix anything because Islam doesn't say beat your wife and then life is going to be good and then, you continue your life. Do you really want to be with the woman who cheated on you? Probably not. Probably not a good idea. Nowhere in this verse does it say anything about cheating. It says if you fear her disobedience, you can beat her. Stop speaking out of your ass, Nu'man. Stop speaking out of your ass. Yeah, the way that he makes us feel bad for the abuser, he just beat her a little bit, guys. Guys, how, put yourself in that situation.
At the, if you look at and by the way, when I discussed this, Professor Abd Al-Halim, right? Remarkable Quran scholar. He's the one sharing this with me. And I'm like, whoa, I never heard that before. So that night, I had dinner with a bunch of scholars, traditional scholars. I'm not going to name them. I don't want to blast anybody. And I was the only kind of like, dressed like a kafir kind of, they're all traditionally dressed ulama. And so I was like, let's stir up some trouble around here.
Really, like, you almost think that he has a spine, like he would actually stir up trouble among a bunch of, mutatawa'in or something. Like he's actually going to push back on anything. I keep seeing this commenter, disobedient wife should be disciplined. Fucking get a life, man. Like there's no way you actually think like this in the 21st century. And whose fault is it but Islam's? Disobedient wives should be disciplined. What about disobedient husbands? What about, abusive husbands? There's no recourse for Muslim women to discipline their abusive husbands except to go find another man to plead her case to. A judge, a wise man in the family or his family, bring the families together, beg the other men to do something about it. That's what a woman can do. What a husband can do is beat his own wife and nobody can ask him questions.
So I was studying the ayah about hitting women with Professor Abd Al-Halim this morning.
Oh, and he wanted to say, like, dressed like a kafir, like this is how kafirs dressed, and the sheikhs were all dressed like, the way sheikhs would dress. And he's, I guess, trying to signify how out of the, how breaking the mold he was compared to them, how they all were like really properly dressed for a sheikh, and he's like the different one, he's the modern one, he's not like a regular sheikh, he's like a cool sheikh, guys, he's cool, he's on our side.
And they're like, really, what did he say? And I shared this with them, and this is actually it's restricted only to a case of repeated and like perpetual infidelity from a wife, and it drives the man nuts, and then he eventually ended up.
Clearly, Allah is up each and every one of these sheikhs' asses, whispering to them from within, because I don't see any of this in the Quran. There's nothing about, well, if the woman's a particularly crazy bee and she's been driving you crazy and like it's repeated and like you've talked to her and there's nothing you could do, just rough her up a little bit. That's not what the verse says. Stop bullshitting. Stop bullshitting.
Losing his cool. And Allah says, people get killed over this sort of thing, by the way. And by the way, hitting, then comes the sunnah.
Wait, who gets killed over this sort of thing, by the way?
Losing his cool. And Allah says, people get killed over this sort of thing, by the way. And by the way, hitting, then comes the sunnah.
Fuck you so hard now, man. He says, essentially, women get killed over this kind of disobedience. So this is the next best thing? Like beating them a little bit is better than killing them? Tell me, am I, like, is there anything that I'm not understanding?
He eventually ended up losing his cool. And Allah says, people get killed over this sort of thing, by the way. And by
people get killed. The passive fucking language here. People get killed over this sort of thing, by the way. What? You mean Muslim men kill their women because their egos are hurt? Is that what you meant to say? Not people get killed over this sort of thing, by the way. So beating them a little bit is better than killing them. What? Also, thanks for, again, reminding me of this. This is before his sex scandals were made public. And there's Muhammad Hijab, the stuff going on with Muhammad Hijab right now. I still haven't made a video about that. I'm waiting for all the facts to come out. And personally, I don't care about people's personal dramas, but I think it's very important to highlight how much abuse a Muslim man can inflict on a Muslim woman, even if he's a public figure, especially if he's a public figure, and it's all Islamically halal. Muhammad Hijab right now has a secret wife that is a secret from everyone, it's his side chick, essentially, his side hoe. And I'm sorry for her. Like, I really am. She has to be kept in secret. He meets her in hotels. And now he's like, he thinks that people like her talking about her story is like the Zionist agenda to bring him down or some bullshit. He doesn't think he did anything wrong. These men use the power that Allah supposedly bestowed on them through Muhammad to do cult leader activities. Like it's essentially Muhammad mini. So they preach about good manners. They preach about morality. They preach about all this stuff. And they're using their God-given rights to the fullest of its extent.
By the way, hitting, then comes the sunnah. How much can you hit? How can you hit? The Prophet ﷺ, the sunnah will dictate that you can't actually hit hard ever.
Okay, so again, fuck off. No, man. The sunnah, meaning like the actions of the prophet, the stories of the prophet. I showed you all these hadiths where Muhammad would see women get beaten green and say fuck all because he has no spine. So what did we learn from the sunnah? That you can beat your wife green, and Muhammad himself was not going to do anything about it. That's what we learned from the sunnah. What do we learn from the sunnah? That Muhammad can get paranoid in the middle of the night about his wife following him, hit her on the chest, she says it hurt her, and still somehow maintain that he never hit anybody. That's what we learned from the sunnah. What do we learn from the sunnah? That after Muhammad said that you can beat your wife, Muslim women were hurt proportionately more. And Aisha herself said, I don't see women suffering as much as Muslim women. That's what we learned from the sunnah. So don't bullshit me with this whole like, but Muhammad was this cute little guy who never hurt a fly. You can't do that. We're not stupid.
You can't ever, hit in a way that even the skin would turn red.
Oh, but it could turn green. It could turn green and that's fine. Fuck off.
And like tap or whatever. That's a separate problem.
Yeah, that is a separate problem. Let's talk about it. So there's this whole apologetic, thread on, well, you can hit her with like a miswak, like the little twig that they use to clean their teeth. It's kind of like a primitive toothbrush. And I don't say primitive in like a demeaning way, but an earlier version of a toothbrush. And they say, well, it's symbolic. You tap her with a toothbrush. What the fuck is this going to do? So you're telling me that the scenario here is your wife is wearing makeup, going out late at night, getting railed by dudes, and then she comes home and you tap her with a toothbrush? Really? Is this what you're preaching, Noman? Is this what Islam says you're supposed to do when your wife is cheating on you? Tap her with a toothbrush. No, it's clearly not about your wife cheating on you. It's about your wife not obeying your every whim. So say it's about her leaving the house without your permission or not preparing your favorite food or whatever other thing, and you tap her with a toothbrush. What is that going to do? I mean, is she a child? Are you talking to a little baby? Are you saying, Kocha, don't do this? Ew, bad. How is that going to work on a grown-ass woman? So don't bullshit us and say that's what Allah said. Allah said beat them. Okay? Allah said beat them.
But this is restricted to the craziest case. It's not the norm. It's not the norm.
So in the craziest case, touch her with a miswak. Who's crazy? Me or this guy? I ask myself that question all the time because you look at the comments and it's so sad. The amount of Muslims glazing him who are like, subhanAllah, I had doubts and you explained everything perfectly. And then you have Muslims who say, well, I have a lot of doubts because of this verse. And then like, I still don't know what to do. And there are comments about how they or people in their life are being beaten by their husbands and there's nothing that they could do about it. What good is this apologetic bullshit doing for them? What good is this doing for anybody? Is this stopping domestic abuse in Muslim families? Fuck no, it doesn't do anything for that. Is this going to convince anyone who thinks it's their God-given right to beat their wife to not beat their wife? No, it will not. All this does is serve as bullshit apologetics so people don't question or leave religion and Islam is not scrutinized.
So I said that. That is not the norm. That is the exception. And to use that as a norm is a crime against the Quran.
How'd it go?
A crime against... To read the Quran and apply it is a crime against the Quran. Thinking is apparently a crime against the Quran. It's a crime against Islam.
I'm expecting like fireworks. Yeah. The senior guy among them, you know what he says? Makes sense. We believe that too.
Oh, wow.
That was it.
I love his stupid face.
No. You do? That was it.
That's how I was just listening to this guy the whole time. That was my facial expression. Are you real? Are you for real?
No.
No.
You do? Because of course. I was like, why don't you ever say it? I literally just called him out. Like I couldn't help myself. Like, why is this the first time I'm learning this?
That's a very good fucking question. Allah, why is this the first time that we're hearing about this miswak thing and only in extreme cases and all that bullshit? Why can't you read Arabic? Why can't you write Arabic, Allah? Why can't you just write, don't beat your wife unless it's an extreme case and then it's only with a toothbrush? Why? Why is this the first we're hearing about this? Why are there so many women to this very day that are being beaten and all you got to say is a little discussion among men that are like, yeah, just a little bit of beating.
Yeah. And he says, people aren't mature enough to learn these things yet. And
fuck off. People aren't mature enough to learn what things yet?
And they won't be able to, people might take advantage of it. And like,
You're telling me the Quran, people are not mature enough to read the Quran. Then who did Allah write it for then? Who did Allah write the Quran for if people are not mature enough to read it? And if people can so easily use it to hurt others, can't Allah write better? I've done this so many times before. We could change the verse together, you and me, even people who don't read Arabic or speak Arabic. We can write a better verse in whatever language than this bullshit. So who is not mature enough to read the Quran? Who is going to misuse the Quran if it's supposed to be so clear?
Seems like
that is disturbing.
It is disturbing. Thank you,
man. That your job is to clarify the religion for people.
And it's Allah's job. If it's his final and only message, it's his job to write a book that everyone can understand. It's his job to write a book that doesn't say beat your wives and then be like, well, not really.
And now you're going to decide what's in their best interest and keep. It's just messed up.
He's saying the wrong thing is messed up. He's saying it's messed up that people don't talk about this verse in an apologetic way more. Not that this verse exists.
There are other interpretations. Now, don't even hit them. Just go away from them.
Yeah.
I'm not as convinced of them from linguistics perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from the context. Now here's the thing.
From the context, fuck off. It doesn't even meet that. Like the verse says, advise them, separate from them, and then separate from them. How does that make sense? Obviously, it's beat them.
فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ, if they start obeying you. The question is, if you think your wife is cheating on you, why don't you just leave her?
Yeah.
Because ayat in the Quran are there. If you think she's, you can accuse her. You can do. Now, if you accuse in a Muslim society, then you're going to accuse and they're going to go to court and the entire family will be humiliated and she might even be executed, whatever.
Yeah.
Proceedings are going to happen. And if she doesn't want to admit to it, she'll have to declare that Allah's curse should be on her if she's lying.
Also, would you rather be beaten or have Allah curse you? Again, he talks about cheating as if this verse is about cheating. This verse is about fearing her disobedience. You can beat her over a fear that you have. That is the end of the fucking verse. Like, that's it. You can't just bullshit me like that. No, man, I can't do this. I can't keep doing this.
Do you hate her that much that you want Allah's curse to be on her forever?
And notice how he said, obey. If she obeys you. Again, it's not that if she obeys Allah and is a good wife. If she obeys you.
In the Quran are there. If you think she's, wife. فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ, if they start obeying you.
Fucking there it is. If they obey you, it's all about obedience. And the obedience isn't stop bouncing on my neighbor's thing. It's whatever it is that you want it to be. So stop bullshitting us and making this about cheating when it's not.
Proceedings are going to happen. And if she doesn't want to admit to it, she'll have to declare that Allah's curse should be on her if she's lying.
So he's saying it's an alternative to either the whole family being humiliated that she cheated and going to court and her honor, he didn't say the word honor, but that's it, her honor and the honor of the family being dragged to the mud. That is worse than the husband beating her and dealing with it at home. That's what you're saying, Nauman.
Do you hate her that much that you want Allah's curse to be on her forever?
I'm sorry. I'm at my limit with curse words today, but this fucking twist,
should be on her if she's lying. Do you hate her that much that you want Allah's curse to be on her forever?
Do you hate her so much that you want Allah's curse to be on her forever? Don't you love her enough to beat her? Don't you love her enough to rough her around a little bit so that Allah doesn't curse her? I don't know what I'm out of F words to say to this guy.
And maybe there are kids involved. There's other family involved. There are emotions involved. Maybe you don't.
Yeah, maybe there are kids involved. So beat her. Have violence be normal in the house, so that the kids are scarred forever and that they perpetuate it to the next generations. That is better than divorcing her.
You don't want to leave her. Maybe you want to move on from this incident. So he says, if they start obeying you, then don't make a case against them again. فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبْغُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلًا.
So if they start obeying you, then no harm, no foul. After you've beat them. How is that a mercy? How is that an upside to the verse?
Start over. Don't bring it up again. Move on. If you're gonna move on, then you better move on. Wow. Don't ever bring it up again.
Oh, mashallah. So fair. So great. So wise.
إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيًّا كَبِيرًا.
And at the end of every verse, or a lot of verses, there's that usual repetitive stupid glazing. Allah is this. Allah is, insert two attributes here. Allah is Aliyan Kabira. Allah is grand. Allah is high. What's the relevance of Allah's highness and grandness to beating your wives? What is the relevance? By the way, I see this theme repeated, like this commenter saying, Gecko says, I feel so stupid for being a part of this religion as a convert. I don't want you to feel stupid, because there's a lot that you're not told when you join this religion and when you grow up in it. You're fed a sugar-coated, beautified version of it, and usually it makes you feel like some sort of solidarity and sympathy and empathy for usually a minority of people or some cause or something. They make it seem pretty. They don't tell you everything. So I don't want you to feel bad as much as I want people to be warned so they don't fall for this in the future. That's my goal.
Allah is the ultimately high. Why did Allah say it in this ayah? Why did he say he's the ultimately high?
Thank you, Aman. Please answer it.
Because Allah did not give you the height. He's the ultimately high.
Suck it, Naaman, suck it. He's like, okay, so the glazing for Allah being the ultimately high is relevant because Allah is humbling you by reminding you that you as a man are not the ultimately high. Oh boy. Noor says, but if the husband cheats, sends nude pictures to his side piece, like Naaman, pray for him and be patient. He's allowed for. Sincerely, Dawah Bros. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
He's the big one. He's Kabir, not you.
I'll show you a big one, Naaman. A big miswak to like tap you lightly with. It's insane, the level of gaslighting. And again, I feel so sorry for people who are still watching this to this very day and still falling for it. You don't have to listen to this. You don't have to listen to this.
He put the man in his place at the end of this ayah. Now, from the
wait. He put the man in his place. So Allah says men are dominant over women and you can beat them, but Allah is the highest, the most exalted, the most blah, blah, blah. Putting the man in his place. And what is that place? In between God and women. Yes, he put the man in his place between God and women. And you know what? God doesn't exist, though, at least the way that we understand him. From my perspective, there's nothing up in the sky. It's just man, woman, and supposedly the authority of God is above him. So no, that like Allah is the greatest doesn't do shit to actually humble the man. If anything, it raises the man's power because he's deriving from that power and authority of Allah.
The context, this ayah is actually not about hitting women at all.
No. Why did you talk for 14 minutes about hitting women if the context about this verse is not about hitting women?
From the context at the end of this ayah. Now, from the context, this ayah is actually not about hitting women at all. It's about protecting the fidelity and the loyalty inside a marriage.
Protect this, Naaman. Protect this. No way. There's no way he managed to twist all of that. After the wife beating apologetics, it's actually not about beating your wives. It's about protecting the sanctity of the marriage. Ask your buddy, Muhammad Hijab. I don't know if they're friends, but is Muhammad Hijab protecting the sanctity of the marriage by having a secret second wife? That's the thing, though. Like, I can't even, me calling out Muhammad Hijab is not saying, here's this particularly bad Muslim man, and therefore all Muslim men are bad. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. Muhammad Hijab can be a piece of shit to his wife and to another woman. Islamically, he did nothing wrong. So don't tell me this verse is about protecting the family unit or the sanctity of marriage when a man can fuck as many women as he wants as long as he either marries them or owns them and can beat them. And tell me this verse is not about beating.
That's what it's about.
That's what it's about. His waffling only to say it's not about what I just rambled on about. Words don't mean words. Love doesn't mean love. Hate doesn't mean hate. Everything means whatever the fuck they want to feed you.
And what a man is afraid of, that's happening. By the way, why use the word fear? If somebody says, I'm afraid of the uprising of my wife, fear, by the way, is she put too much shy? So scared.
Yeah.
It's not something you're scared of. That's something you're mad about.
Yeah.
I didn't fucking add this.
By the way, why use the word fear? If somebody says, I'm afraid of the uprising of my wife, fear, by the way, is she put too much shy? So scared.
Yeah.
It's not something you're scared of. That's something you're mad about.
Yeah. An inconvenience.
But if a husband thinks his wife is cheating, is he scared? Yeah.
And he's so fucking proud of himself. The glazing, man, the bullshit. Isn't there a verse? And I made a whole video about this, about what's his name? Musa, the prophet, the supposedly prophet Musa, and Al-Khidr, the wise man. And the wise man, God feared, فَخَافَ رَبُّكَ أَنْ يُرْهِقَهُمَا, talking about that kid who was going to turn out to be a kafir. God feared that the kid would exhaust his parents with his kufr. Does God fear? Does God feel like, oh my God, I'm afraid, like what he just did with the fucking sugar? Does God fear? It's the same word. So you can't just make up whatever meaning fear means and say it's applicable here because blah, blah, blah. No, you can't just make this whole thing about cheating. The reason why the verse is only for fearing their disobedience is because it gives license to act without any proof. Because even if you just fear her disobedience, you don't know that anything happened, you have license to beat her. I see this kind of comment all the time. I can't believe I used to watch this guy's videos and I was impressed. It's easy to sell bullshit to people who have never been exposed to critical thinking. And I'm sorry, I don't mean this as an insult to any of you. We have grown up in environments devoid of critical thinking when it comes to religion. He said it himself. Even questioning that the verse is bad is kufr. So we didn't have the ability to see that this guy was so full of shit.
The word fear in any other interpretation doesn't add up. How are you afraid that she leaves the bathroom door open? How are you afraid that she raises her voice? That has nothing to do with fear.
Yeah, that's actually a position of power.
That's a position of power. And the position of power has been taken away at the end. Can you imagine how much abuse of Allah's word is being done in his name?
You're abusing the fuck out of the words right now. Like you're trying to make them mean whatever the heck you want them to mean. And okay, if people are abusing Allah's words to beat their wives, it's still Allah's fault. Write better. Hire someone off of Fiverr to write better for you. I can write better for Allah. I can write better than Allah. Here's the challenge. Muslims would hear that and think, what, you think you're better than the creator of the universe? No, I think I can write at least a few verses better than how Allah has written them. I can edit them for him. Let's say that. I'm not going to write a whole Quran from scratch. I can edit the Quran better than Allah to make it so that nobody can so-called abuse the words of Allah. What kind of idiot God would write a book knowing it's the final message and not see it coming that people will understand this to beat? Like, what kind of idiot would write these things?
And then look, it began with qawamun, right? Caretakers, which already tells you, why would you hit someone when you're their caretaker? And then ayat right after, oh, wa'budullah.
Wait, why would you hit someone where you're the caretaker? I showed you a hadith earlier about Aisha beating the shit out of the orphans. Why would Aisha beat someone she's the caretaker of? Huh? Muhammad said that you can beat your kids if they don't pray. Why would a caretaker beat someone they're taking care of? You don't just get to make up bullshit and say, well, no caretaker beats anybody. The verse says you are caretakers, you are dominant over them, and then you can beat them.
What? Be the best to your parents, be the best to close relatives, be the best to your neighbors, be the best to people you live next door to, your next door neighbors, and also the people you commute next to. The one who's sitting next to you on a plane or on a bus or on a camel.
What's the relevance of all this stuff? Be the best to people, but also you could beat your wife. And then he says, he's almost touching on something that we have contended with as people who question. How come the Quran says do all these good things and then says do this bad thing? And his interpretation is, well, there's no way it's saying do this bad thing, except it is. But only if she's cheating, but only a little bit, only with a toothbrush. Which is it? Tell Allah to pick a lane. Like, how is this our fault?
Be the best to them. Okay, be the best to everyone else. Just smack around your wife, huh?
Muhammad said, those are not the best of you, but he didn't say don't do it.
What? I don't even understand how they can, this kind of abuse is something Allah talks about in the Quran.
Yeah, he talks about it in the Quran. He says, yeah, he did talk about this. He gave license to this.
They took the Quran and they tore it to pieces. They tear this piece out, hit them. They tear that piece out, and the rest of the speech doesn't even matter to them. And that's the crime they commit. SubhanAllah.
Because I think it's self-serving. Sometimes
That's exactly right.
Such a big problem that
Look, if you're gonna hit people, you've got an issue.
Yeah, no shit. Does Muhammad have an issue? Does Umar ibn al-Khattab has an issue? Did this guy just say that Umar ibn al-Khattab has an issue? This is almost blasphemy, right? Like Umar ibn al-Khattab is not a prophet, but Umar ibn al-Khattab was a deranged piece of shit man, and he was the prophet's like right-hand man. Isn't that blasphemy? Muhammad himself hit Aisha. Isn't that blasphemy?
Don't drag the religion into it.
Don't drag the religion that says beat your wife into beating your wife.
That's your psychological trauma. You've got a serious problem. You need.
They throw the word the buzzword trauma around as if like the moment that you hear trauma, you'd have to think it's human fault. It's not Allah's fault. Trauma is human. Trauma is not Allah. You can't just say trauma. Islam instilled trauma into people. It's the cause of generational trauma. You can't just say, don't drag the verse into this.
Psychiatric help. And if women are being hit, they better seek.
You know who could need psychiatric help? Muhammad. If Muhammad got psychiatric help, we wouldn't be here today.
Protection. They better seek counsel, share it with someone, as embarrassing as it is. Because when there's physical abuse, what comes with it is psychological abuse.
No shit, Sherlock. No shit. When you tell women that they're below men, you don't think there's going to be psychological abuse before there's even physical abuse?
So the guy will make her feel like scum. He'll make her feel like she deserves it. You know, she'll start thinking she deserves it. They're so beat sometimes, they actually think they deserve it. It's good for them.
Does he not realize that he's literally making that happen right now? He started this whole spiel with the Quran is perfect, and if you question it, then you're doing something wrong, then you're a kafir. Then where else are people supposed to direct their scrutiny, if not at themselves, if they can't direct it at the Quran?
That's the height of psychological abuse and trauma, right? And those kinds of women, they need to, if a woman finds herself in that situation, she needs to get help. She needs to get.
Yeah, and how does a woman get help in Islam? Tell us, Na'man. How can a woman get help? When the man is the one who's responsible for her, he's caretaker of her. If your caretaker is abusing you, who do you go to for help? How? I've heard so many stories, again, firsthand accounts of abused women who can't escape where they're from and escape their family or their husband because that is the person who has control over them. There are places where you can't even travel or rent an apartment or buy a car or do things without your guardian's approval, your man's approval. What are they supposed to do then? Get help from where?
Get family involved. I don't want to tell you. I don't want to disturb my parents. Yes, you do. Go disturb your parents.
And what should she do when her mom is also a woman who was beaten by the woman's father, and she just says, well, just stay with your husband, he knows what's best. What should she do then? Like what's the solution when it's generational?
Your mother bore a lot heavier than this. She gave you birth. She almost died. So if you're worried about bothering your mom, she's already been bothered way more than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, she was beaten by your dad, so you can go tell her about your husband beating you.
Go tell your mom. Tell someone, help deal with it as a family. If not, just at least go to a professional, somebody outside. But this should not go unanswered.
And also how, again, contrast this with the beginning of this live stream where we had that other sheikh who would beat his wife for going outside without his permission. How do you go to your mother or to a professional or to the police if you don't have your husband's permission, who beats you for not leaving the house, without his permission? It's a fucking circle of abuse. You can't just say, go seek professional help. Professional help would tell you, get the fuck out of this religion, get the fuck out of this abusive family. That's what professional help would tell you.
And nobody should ever think nobody else cares, because that's what the abuser does.
Yeah.
Abusers, as they abuse you, they tell you, who's going to care about you?
Yeah.
Who cares about you?
And it's funny because I'm fairly certain you can hear this same guy have sound bites where he talks about other situations in that very way, where he says, oh, you leave Allah, who's going to care about you? Who's going to care about you if you stop believing in Allah? You're nothing without Allah. You'll be tortured without Allah. Go see what your life without Allah would be. He would say that same shit. So apply that to him. Is he an abuser? An extension of Islam?
I'm doing you a favor. That's how they frame it. And they just develop this unfortunate,
Isn't that how you framed it earlier? Guys, am I bugging, or did this guy not say that the alternative to her getting beaten would be going to court and, her family being involved and Allah having a curse on her forever. So he's doing her a favor by beating her. Who said that, if not you?
Mindset that keeps them imprisoned, not only in that relationship, but even in their mind, they're imprisoned. And that needs to be,
And in their religion.
just broken. SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah.
What do you say about some people who say the context of how the word فَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا, like how the word daraba is used in the Quran?
Now they're going to talk about how the word beat actually could mean something else in a different context and so on.
Isn't necessary, is used in different ways as well.
It is used in different ways. Like, I didn't want to get technical about it, but the way that it's used in this ayah, وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, there's no preposition with it. And there's nothing that indicates that it's being used figuratively.
Okay.
This is the first honest thing he said.
So to me, that's a stretch. From a language perspective, that's a pretty big stretch.
Finally.
And I haven't exhausted study in classical scholarship. I don't know if anybody even went that route, but I know that opinion does exist. So I do respect it as an opinion. I'm not as...
No, I disrespect it as an opinion. Again, this is the sort of spinelessness of apologetic Muslims, where even when they know some apologetics are bullshit, they can't say, actually, no, that's not true. They say, well, I respect it. Allahu A'lam, God knows best. اختلف العلماء, the scholars have differed in opinions. No, have a stance. Say that's bullshit. The Arabic means what it means. Just say that.
Convinced of it, SubhanAllah. But look at it from the harshest interpretation could be that this is in the case of infidelity, and the softest interpretation could be this is about walking away from the relationship.
Wait. So walking away from the relationship would mean that you would beat her? This doesn't make any sense.
The harshest interpretation could be that this is in the case of infidelity, and the softest interpretation could be this is about walking away from the relationship.
So you can't walk away from the relationship because your husband might beat you, and that's the softest interpretation?
Those are the two, and there's no other range. So in the ayah, this is an ayah of practicality and something we're supposed to love. SubhanAllah.
This is something about practicality and something we're supposed to love. Guys, what do I even say to that? We're supposed to love this fucked up verse about beating your wife, and it's just a practical solution to everyday problems.
So help the Muslims get out of abuse, whether or not...
How can they get out of abuse when you're perpetuating it, you dumb...
they're being abused, or whether they're the abusers themselves. SubhanAllah. Barakallah. See you next time, inshallah.
See you next time. Great talk. Fucking idiot. Anyway, sorry for all the cussing, guys, but this was the only way I could get through this today. I genuinely cannot do this for the rest of my life. Like, what else can you say to these idiots? It's sad that there are people who are still victim to this religion and still victim to this bullshit apologetics. Just anybody can do this, by the way. You don't have to be an expert on Islam. You don't have to be an expert on finding hadiths and reading them and all that kind of stuff. Listen to their words and listen to how they contradict their own words. Just listen to them. That's all you need to do. Even as Muslims, even if a Muslim is watching this, don't trust me. I'm a filthy kafir. Don't trust anything I say. Listen to them. Hold their feet to the fire. Ask them questions. See how people react when you ask critical questions. See how quickly everybody's going to turn on you when you start asking, why would Allah say beat at all? You don't need me to do this for you all the time. You could do this yourself. But I know it's easier for someone who's already on the outside to look at this stuff critically, which is why I do what I do. So thank you for all your support, and I appreciate you, bearing with me through this weird stream. I am still sick, but I'm feeling a bit better every day, and I think I'm going to have a live stream on Friday. So if you want to join as a caller, if you're a Muslim, you want to join as a caller this Friday, similar time to when this stream started, you can already find it on the channel. Just join before the live stream, 30 minutes, and you can join as a caller. And if you want to discuss why you believe in Islam, despite of all this stuff that I showed you, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. But yeah, I need to let off some steam before I talk about this stuff in a stoic and level-headed way, because there's just no way to take this in and be sane without, cussing a little bit. because that's insane, guys. That's insane. So yeah, do not beat your wives, husbands, girlfriends, partners, whatever. Don't beat anybody. If someone's cheating on you, walk away from that relationship. Get your rights. Get the stuff that's owed to you and leave. Don't listen to this guy. Also, you want to see the cat? Here's one of them. Look at how he's gonna lick my hand as soon as I put it there. He's so nice. He's Mr. Clean. He's the one who jumps on my shoulder sometimes. Anyway, today was Spicy Aladdin. Thanks for being here. As always, think critically, think for yourself. And special thank you to all the patrons, YouTube members, Discord members for helping me financially, because I genuinely cannot do this without you. As I mentioned before, I'm continuing to evolve my content, and I'm going to do a bit more live streams these days. Still going to make videos, once a month or so. So if you want to help me with that, links are in the description, and consider watching one of these videos next. I will pick a couple of videos that are relevant and they'll be up there in a bit. And as always, think critically and think for yourself.